So is everybody seeing the agenda on their screen? Is anyone seeing it?
Yep,
We
it's
see
there.
it.
Yep, it's there.
Thank you. Just want to make sure before let's see, I've got Carol. Ralph, Sherry. We still need Chris. And we can get going again. There's Chris. Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. This is the Hideout Utah Town Council regular meeting of December 9th, 2021. This meeting is an electronic meeting without an anchor location. Pursuant to the anchor letter, which is appended in the package, describing the fact that COVID continues to plague us as well as the rest of the nation and the world. And for public safety purposes, we will be doing this electronically as opposed to in person. I'm calling the meeting to order, and we'll be getting roll call for council members. Carol Hazelton.
I'm here.
Thank you. Chris Byer.
Here.
Thank you. Ralph Severini.
Here.
Sherry Jacobs.
Here.
Thank you. And Bob Nailberg is excused as he's working tonight. Okay. We are trying to keep myself looking at the right screen here. Okay. We have a whole list of meeting minutes to approve. First of all, thanks to Alicia for all the hard work. The first one is the October 16th, 2020 minutes draft. That was one we reviewed at a prior meeting. We bounced it back for additional review and some additional detail. Thanks to Ralph's hard efforts here on that one as well. And Alicia for the refresh. So there's quite a bit more detail in this version. I think it's a well done synopsis of what went on a very long meeting, and I'm comfortable with them. But obviously, we need your inputs as well. So, council, thoughts on the October 16th?
Since I was the one who kind of started this, first of all, thanks, Alicia. I think you caught all the good points from the, towards the end of the meeting. And I think there were some important points around some commitments that various people had made, both for the referendum and the annexation itself. So most appreciated. I thought, all the redlining and all the additions were really, really good. So great stuff. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your input.
Yeah, this is Chris. I read them carefully and they look like a very accurate representation of what happened. So thanks, Ralph. Thanks, Alicia, for your hard work, especially at the end.
Thank you.
And I agree also. I read them very carefully, and it compared to the first set that we looked at, they look great.
Thank you.
Okay. If it's okay with council, we'll go through the 5 ones and then decide which ones we want to approve for tonight and which ones we might want to defer for further update, as opposed to doing them one at a time, if that's okay with council. So Next ones are the May 13th minutes.
Alicia, I had two comments on those.
Okay.
Okay,
So in section VII, 7,
Okay.
when Councilmember Byer introduced Nikki Key, who had contacted Hideout to be a host sponsor for a community cleanup event, not a trail. It wasn't a trails event.
Okay.
Thank you. And then below, like line 22, when the discussion with Mr. Fields, there was just something, one line that you attributed to me. She asked Mr. Fields to speak directly to council regarding any specific accusations in the future. I thought I asked him to be specific about his accusations to the council in the future. Kind of just
Okay.
rewording it.
Okay. So just take out directly to council.
Yeah, no, not directly. I asked him to be specific about his accusations.
Okay.
yeah, that's what I remember too, Chris, that
Yeah.
we basically, he was sort of just put out some general words and we were looking for, be more concise or be more specific. If there's something that was specifically said that they felt was inappropriate, then they should tell us what that specific was so that we can figure out how we can address that.
Yeah,
I agree.
exactly. Thank you.
Okay. So change that sentence. She asked Mr. Fields to be specific regarding any accusations in the future.
Yes,
That's perfect.
perfect,
Perfect. I like it.
perfect.
Thank you.
Anybody else on that one?
I read them earlier and I'm just reviewing them. I'm fine with them, with the modifications that were just suggested. Any other comments from council on the 13th? Okay. The next meeting was a meeting on June 2nd. That meeting took place when I was not present, so I'm not in a position to comment on the accuracy since I wasn't at the meeting. So Chris, I'll need you to,
I thought, well, I'll just, as a council member, I think the second looks fine. I don't have any, I don't have any additions or corrections or feedback.
any other from council? Comment on that? The next meeting is the June 8th meeting. That was the where we did an update on the various studies we did on the Silver Meadows annexation. I think Alicia did a nice job in pulling together the summaries from the various project consultants that we hired to do that work. I didn't see any issues with the minutes, and the studies continue to be available on our website.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the minutes captured the discussions very well and the results of the presentations. Thank you, Alicia.
Okay. And then the last one was a Board of Canvassers meeting notes on the referendum certification, and pretty straightforward. And I have no issues with what Alicia put together here as well. Okay.
I'll agree.
Based
No,
on that,
no comments on the 29th. Looks great.
then I need a motion to adopt town council minutes as presented tonight, incorporating the two comments that Councilwoman Byer made in regard to the May 13th section.
Yeah, also move, Phil.
Thank you.
I'll second.
You
This is
second?
great.
Good
Thank you,
job,
Chris.
Alicia.
Okay, Carol?
Yes, and I'd just like to say Alicia does a great job with the minutes.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sherry, because you were not on the council, you're certainly welcome to abstain here.
I have to abstain because I was not there, but I did learn a lot from reading all of them.
Good. Chris,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
okay. Minutes are approved as described. Thank you all, and thanks especially to Alicia. She does, as pointed out, she does a terrific job on this stuff. She does a terrific job, period, but also on this stuff.
Thank you.
I'm looking to see if Alicia, has the sheriff joined? Do you know?
I haven't seen him yet.
Okay, then we'll, just so everybody knows, there is we have an item in agenda item section 6, where we're going to have an update from the Wasatch County Sheriff. When the sheriff joins, we will, we're going to let him go ahead. He's traveling and expected to be in a position where he could call us by now, but there is weather, as we all know, so it's affecting his
So he just
transit
joined. I
time.
just admitted him.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. So we're going to jump to that, and then we'll come back to the other parts of the agenda. So I'd like to welcome Sheriff Jared Rigby from Wasatch County Sheriff's Department. Appreciate him making time for us, Sheriff.
Yeah, it's great to be with all of you. Thanks for time.
There you are. Okay. Thanks. I know you're traveling and it's a busy time, so we'll get you in and get you off as expeditiously as possible. So, so the sheriff, for the council edification, the sheriff, we've been working with the Wasatch Sheriff's Department for about a year now. You've all seen them in, the sheriffs and their deputies in town. I think they've been doing a very good job of utilizing the time there that they're allocated for Hideout in our area and in making their presence felt. And then I think I shared with council a report that the sheriff shared. Although I think I only shared it today or yesterday. But he's going to talk through that and some other comments, and then we can see if we have any other questions or comments for the sheriff. So thanks, Sheriff. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you bet. Sorry to be late. And it's good to see you all. Hope you're enjoying the white stuff we all been waiting for, huh?
Yeah.
So please ask questions as you have them. I have 4 main things that I had prepared. One has to do with that we've appreciated working with you for several years, especially this last year under an agreement, which it was just for 1 year. It's set to expire at the end of this month. And so thus far, we've been working 57 hours at least a month for you. The enforcement side of things has been focusing on speed and parking and roundabout problems. Now, the agreement for anyone that might need a little bit of refreshing, is there's a basic level of service that we provide at the sheriff's office through the general fund of the county, which is for all of the citizens, regardless of what city or town or unincorporated area of the county they live. And so that really involves responding to calls for service. Really what that means is anyone that calls 911 or calls the sheriff's office and they need some help. Most of those calls, not all, but most of them are going to be us responding to someone's home, or a small percentage of the time just making a phone call. And again, that's what we consider to be the basic level of service, a minimum level, something that we owe all of the citizens in the county, regardless of any additional service that we might be in a contract to provide to you. And so we've been doing that 57 hours at least each month. Really, I'm not sure if you have it in front of you or not, but if you do, I provided this statistical report for calls for service from the beginning of this year to date. And so this is the basic level of service. And thought you might be interested to just see a short rundown of where we have spent some time. A number of your citizens and residents have alarms on their homes. And so we go to those whenever the alarms are triggered. You can see some child abuse, 6 of them to date. There's a few other things like some drugs, a couple of DUIs. We've been in a police pursuit one time in Hideout. We've impounded somewhere around 13 vehicles. That usually means they're a state tax impound. There's also a thing we call hold for owner, which is basically someone will call in and say, this vehicle's been parked illegally for the statutory required time. So we'll go there, we'll mark it, or we'll make a report, and then we'll make sure that that amount of time does go by. And then we'll come back and we will tow it, but it will be at the owner's expense. A lot of parking problems can turn into those things. Most of the time with parking problems, we try to work it out with people. If it's in the middle of the night, we'll try to call them on their phone. We'll try to go knock on doors to try to have the vehicle moved just in a kind and friendly way. If that doesn't work, sometimes we will leave warnings on the vehicle under the windshield wiper. But then there are times when it's just either we're having this problem a lot in a certain area or by a certain person. And so, or their vehicle poses some kind of a safety concern. And so we will just tow it. And that's happened on an average of once a month in Hideout. As you can see, as you go down the list here of all these different types of calls, Hideout has all of them. I'm not seeing any zeros. And this is what I would expect actually of any of the cities or towns or unincorporated area in the county, meaning you have everything that you would expect in a larger city or county. You have the same types of calls, maybe just not as many of them. And so it's also, I wouldn't say an indication that you have certain problems that other cities and towns and counties don't have. That somehow you have more of a problem. You seem to have the numbers that we see throughout the county. You have had several thefts, vehicle theft, trespassing. Anyway, so overall, that is a stats report for the calls that we've been to in Hideout since January. But again, most of this is part of the basic level of service that we provide, regardless of an agreement or a contract. And really then it would move into kind of some discussion of your priorities, what you've noticed, any questions that you might have that I can respond to as far as speed, parking, roundabout problems, things like that, if there's anything that's on your mind.
Hey, Jared, it's
Well-
Ralph Severini. I just want one question. So you mentioned the roundabout. I don't see that I didn't see that in the list. So how do you correlate the roundabout speeding with the items in the list here? And is that, in your initial remarks, you kind of said that was an issue. So maybe you could describe that a little bit more, because I think we're trying to pay some more attention to it at the town level.
Yeah, you bet. So overall, it is two different thoughts there. One is that it is likely captured in one of these other categories. For instance, a traffic stop, suspicious, that that the stop was made, that the problem was handled, but then it's not always the way that the complainant says it is. And so once we make the stop or we find the person, then we find out, oh, they were in a domestic violence situation. And so then the nature, how it's categorized changes just from what it started from is like maybe a roundabout problem and turned into something else. So that's possible here. Now, another one though, is that it's possible that that the deputies, when they responded, they found nothing, and so it turned into a no case. And so these are by and large, these cases in front of you are actual reports, police reports, versus sometimes there's just nothing at all that comes of it. We went there, we tried to find, we couldn't. And so they make a few notes as a quick report, what we call a supplemental, but not necessarily a full narrative police report. And so really, and it's up to you, Mayor, and the council, what you'd like to do going into the year 2022. But right now, we were instructed to try to keep the administrative costs low, and try to focus on the speed and the parking and the roundabout, put the money that you had towards those things, and then just provide a minimal level of service, a minimal level of reporting back. We can increase those things as you'd like us to, but it's just not where the priority was that you guys had that you all had instructed us on, and kind of what the agreement was when we started 2021.
So let me jump in for just a second. Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Mayor. So we do, we have the three-way cameras at the roundabout, so we can track every movement around the roundabout. When we have abuses that are consistent, we'll generally our town folks will talk to folks first. If we have people that are serial abusers, and we had one recently, we did have one of the sheriff's deputies go out and go to the home of the abuser and, knock on the door and make the point that roundabouts are supposed to be going around in one direction. So, we have the tools to do that. We've had a couple of other incidents that we've provided the sheriff access to our cameras, We had a couple of thefts with the construction guys, and we've tried to provide as much evidence as we can to help the sheriff's department get to the bottom of those kinds of things. So one question I had for you, Sheriff, is now that you've got some experience with us, and we don't have to do it here, but ask your team what else can we do to help. Where would you like to see more cameras? We're now up to 4 speed signs. Are there other places that we should be thinking about? Is there additional lighting? I know in that one pursuit case that turned quite tragic, I'm not sure if lighting would have helped, but if there's anything like that that you would recommend for us to try and see. We're going into the budgeting process for and starting in January, so I'd want to look for some funds to see if I can help you guys do your job better.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, the cameras are always very helpful. We could talk more about kind of your budget for that and what might be the best locations. We could also talk about cameras that are tied to license plates, so that we can. There's some technology that actually runs the license plates that helps us with stolen vehicles and things like that. Over the years, you guys do get 2 or 3 of those a year. Anyway, it really comes down to kind of some discussion on whether you think that you're good without any additional law enforcement services like we've been providing this year, whether we want to try to keep the same level in 2022 as we have in 21, or whether you're interested in having us do some more. But I'm open to any of those, just want to be helpful to you.
Thank you, Sheriff. This list is somewhat eye-opening. We have a tendency to think that we live in a perfect bubble here in this area, and this is a reminder that there's no such thing, unfortunately. And it's why we have relationships with the public services, so that we can ensure that that when these things happen, we've got the tools to respond. So
Well, I've appreciated
Sorry.
working with you, Mayor. I've appreciated working with you, Mayor. And anyway, is there's anything that we can be doing to help?
Right. Oh, well, this is Chris Byer. Thank you so much, Sheriff Rigby. There's been a noticeable, visible increase in patrol cars from the sheriff's department, and that's been a really good thing. I think it's helped citizens who would otherwise maybe press the gas pedal too hard, slow down a little bit, which is what we're going for. We're just trying to, make it a safer place by, better behaviors of motorists. And that's been the most noticeable thing for me as a resident, and I truly appreciate that. I thought it would be ironic if I had been pulled over for speeding on 248, because I have occasionally gone over the speed limit. But I realize that would be very bad for me. So it has helped me personally. But I really do appreciate the visibility that we've had this past, during this enhanced level of service this past year. I think it's been a good thing for Hideout.
That's great. The divisions at the sheriff's office, and this is your sheriff's office. It's a jail, it's a 911 center, search and rescue, emergency management, patrol, and investigations. And so, there's been some work that's gone into emergency management. We might be needing to get back with you on it seems like Jeremy Hales,
Yeah.
our director, has been doing some work there.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm bugging him.
yeah, good. So it's all under the sheriff's office there. Those are all the areas that we need to help you and want to help you. And so, thank you.
I think for emergency management, that's something we're trying to plan better for as a town, because we just don't know when we might have a major incident of any sort that might impact us, whether that's a fire or some weather or whatever other emergencies there could be, that some of which I don't actually even want to think about. But
We've got template plans to work off of. We've got large county plans to make you aware of and to be part of. And then there's some additional things that are potential things that we could do to help, but we're not necessarily doing at this time, but we're willing to do. Anyway, all that's possible.
Yeah, so I've got a call, and I think you're aware, I've got a call into Jeremy. We have adopted the Wasatch County Emergency Operations Plan. And I want to make sure that we're aligned on the call levels and the escalation process and so forth. And he said he was going to bring it to your EOP board and then come back to me. And so I'm still waiting for that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be in the next week or two. They're trying to figure out a date right now.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for the sheriff, folks? Okay, well, thank you, Sheriff, for taking the time to bring us up to date. We appreciate it very much. I
Anytime you
will
want
be
me
in
back.
touch, but I would love to, I think, I'm sure that the council was supportive of us renewing the contract and continuing the level of service that we've signed on for, so we can talk about that for January.
Thanks to the mayor for what he's done. Also, your public works employees have been awesome. So thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, thanks, Sheriff. Thank you all. Appreciate you letting me adjust the agenda to accommodate this. Let me switch back here to the agenda, which is, there it is. Okay, is everybody seeing the agenda? Sheriff, you're welcome to stay, or you can just leave the meeting by clicking the leave button. It's up to you, obviously. All right. You guys, it says you're seeing my screen, so hopefully you're seeing that. That's great. We're now moving into the public hearings portion of the meeting, in which we have a number of items to share. The first one being review and possible approval regarding the final Lakeview Estates subdivision and ordinance. Thomas, I know you're here, so how about grabbing the lead here and telling me when to shift screens or as you need.
Sure, I will kind of just walk through this very quickly. The Lakeview subdivision was approved back in October of 2020 by the town council, but pursuant to the new ordinance, if a request to town council has not been submitted for an extension to record, the application has to come back as a new application, as essentially a new application. And so, unfortunately, there were some issues that were not addressed, and the Lakeview Estate subdivision did not get recorded within that period. So Nate is bringing it back for final subdivision review. And so what you'll see tonight is a review, a quick review of that subdivision. It's worth noting that there are no changes proposed. Nothing substantive is changing. But it's also worth noting that the approval for this subdivision, the final approval was back in October of 2020, which was vested under the prior code. In November, the code did change. And so The designation, the district designation remained the same, residential medium density, RMD. So the designation and setbacks, et cetera, those are vested. What did change and what we have to review tonight is the development and subdivision regulations portion of the code. And so, Mayor, maybe you could go to the second page. I'll just kind of walk through these very quickly if anybody has any questions. We identified 4 primary areas. So I'm kind of down there where it says 100806. You see, yep, right there. We wanted to make sure that these 4 issues were addressed. This one is the monotony clause, noting that if it's 6 lots or more, no greater than 20% of the structures will have the same elevation. The applicant has agreed to do that. We've been working with Nate and his team with a design review committee made up of a planning commissioner and a council member. And so that has been addressed. So that's a new portion of the code that is being addressed by Lakeview. The second one is the roads and road requirements. The new code does require 26 feet of pavement width. When Nate and his team came through for their subdivision, they did meet that, even though it wasn't a requirement at the time. They worked with the planning commission and town council, knowing that that was something that was likely pending. So it does meet the 26 feet. Drainage and stormwater facilities. I know that Ryan is on here. He can speak to this, but they reviewed the stormwater infrastructure and confirmed that it does meet the new requirements pursuant to the code. The final one is the public space, the open space requirements. The new code has a formula for minimum open space. This subdivision does meet the new requirements. It would have to have a minimum of 2.07 acres. And this one has approximately 8.4 acres of open space. And so the new development code, the new development regulations and subdivision regulations portion of the code, which this was not vested under, Nate does meet those requirements. And so if you go to the next page, we're simply making a recommendation. We are not TO engineering and integrated planning and design. We're not re-reviewing the design. Again, it is the same design, but we're recommending the same conditions that were recommended by the town council back in October remain in place. And those are the exact conditions from the prior reports and the prior approvals. And we would recommend that you forward or that you would approve this subdivision. I should note one other thing there at the very bottom. At the meeting that this project was approved back in October of 2020, there was a recommendation by council to deviate from deed restrictions that had been put on maybe a year and a half prior. And those deed restrictions early on noted that the council wanted some setbacks for the front portions of the lots, and they were requesting 25 and 30 feet at the time. With the redesign, with the elimination of a number of retaining walls, with the connections to neighboring subdivisions, et cetera, there was a pretty thorough review and redesign of Lakeview, and Nate worked really closely with the town. The council recommended that could be reduced to 20 and 25 feet. That was noted in the minutes. That was noted in the approval back at that time. With that being said, we are recommending, it's on your agenda later, to amend the deed restrictions to confirm that 20 and 25 feet will be the alternating setbacks, not the 25 and 30 feet that had originally been proposed. But that's down the road on the agenda. But that is just worth noting that at the time, council was in favor of that. So again, our recommendation is to review and adopt the final subdivision for Lakeview Estates. And I know Nate is here if you have any specific questions as well.
And I'm going to
let Polly jump in for a second first, guys. Polly
yeah.
has a
So
couple
I was
comments.
going to suggest that we hold off on discussion till slightly later in the agenda, so that we can also talk about the lifting the deed restrictions. It really has to go hand in hand.
So put these two back to back.
Yeah. So if you want to just open the public hearing here, if anyone has anything, and then we can have any discussion and then talk about it, or at least the action should occur along with the deed restriction discussion.
So Polly, would you like that we, after this portion of the public hearing, that we would just bring the deed restriction item forward? So we
Oh,
can do it
that's a
all at
great-
once and then.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
Yep, that works too.
Okay.
So perfect.
So before I open it to the public, we'll first allow council to see if you have any questions on what Thomas just presented. We'll try and clarify. Okay. Good job, Thomas. You've stunned them into silence.
First. Okay. Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to open it for public input. Again, the process, as a reminder, the process in the Zoom session is that you use the Zoom functionality to raise your hand, and then we will call on you. And as a reminder, this is a previously approved subdivision that didn't get platted in time per our code, and so they had to come back. They're coming back through for the reapproval with no changes, as Thomas mentioned. I'm not seeing any hands. So I will close the public input then and move to the item where we have to modify the deed restrictions.
And while you're getting that, I can just give you a little background, although Thomas, of course, touched on it. Back in 2019, when the zoning was changed for this area, the owners at the time entered into a deed restriction to do numerous things. The only thing that we're asking be changed is the minimum front setback. The minimum front setback requirement, and reducing it from 25 feet to 20 feet, which is consistent with the current zone. And I think council talked about how advantageous this might be for to reduce that setback when the project went through council approval the first time. So the only thing we're asking is to just amend, and I redlined it, I think Thomas did too. There might be, if you go down, you can see just in the deed restriction, it's pretty straightforward. Number 3 will just be changed from the red, and the red is existing, and instead we would put in what Thomas has.
That's right.
And just to be clear, the town holds the deed restriction, so you would have to agree to any changes to this document.
Again, as a reminder to council, during the work done on the review of Lakeview, we asked for a number of changes to make what we thought would be a better community and a safer community. We added the through road and the tie-in to Shoreline Phase 2 as an additional exit and so forth. And to allow, to accommodate those changes, the developer for this space said, I can do that, but I have to adjust my setbacks or I'm not going to be able to get in everything that we wanted to do. So we thought the net of allowing these driveway lengths to shift would be beneficial in the long run, so that we can get all the other benefits in as far as the road widths and the new cut throughs and so forth. So,
And it's worth noting that as they do come through for building permits, TO in particular will be looking at them to try to make sure that where we can get 20, 21, 25 greater, we will aim for that. It'll of course be dependent upon the topo, et cetera. But if we can get to greater than 20, we will. But it's just to note that that's the new minimum. And the rest of the deed
Any
restrictions
question-
remain in place.
any
in
questions
terms of
from council
codes,
on
et
this?
cetera.
Sorry. Any questions from council on this modification?
I don't have any questions. This is Chris.
So we really have two motions here. One is a motion to approve/reapprove the Lakeview Estate subdivision, and the second motion is to approve the amended deed restriction for Lakeview.
Are you looking for
So,
a motion here?
I'm looking for a motion to approve the resubmitted Lakeview Estates. We'll do that one first.
Yeah, I'll make the motion. I know we've gone back and forth on this a few times, so good work, Thomas, and moving this forward and getting what both sides want. So thank you.
Thanks.
I need a second on that.
I'll second.
Thank you, Carol. All right. Chris?
Yes.
you vote? Thank you. Carol?
Yes.
Ralph?
Yes,
Sherry?
Yes,
Thank you. Okay, and now I need a motion to approve the modified deed restriction.
and that's for the 20-foot setback. Is that correct?
For the 20-foot setbacks, yeah.
Yeah,
Specifically.
I'll continue with the same motion to move.
Thanks, Ralph.
And I'll second again.
Okay. Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes,
Sherry,
yes,
thank you. Okay, so Lakeview is reapproved and the modified setback is approved. Thank you. Very nicely done, council. Very expeditious, very exciting. All right. The next one is review and possible approval of phase 4 subdivision and ordinance. Thomas, I didn't realize we had a phase 4, but
This is Deer Waters Phase 4, and unfortunately for Nate, this one also did not get recorded within the 6-month period that was required, and so this is very similar to the prior request, and that is no changes are proposed for Deer Waters Phase 4. When you all reviewed this, it came through as Deer Waters Phase 3 and 4, and it was approved on April 8th of 2021. It came through again as the final 2 phases. Phase 3 has been recorded, but phase 4 got delayed. And so that is why this one is coming back as basically a new application for final subdivision approval. No changes are proposed on this. Phase 4 is subject to the vested code based on the MDA, which was recorded in 2017. So there are really no new code sections that this is required to meet. And so we would recommend that you approve this phase 4 subdivision basically the same way that you all had approved it back on April 8th of 2021 when you did both phase 3 and 4. We have an ordinance attached to this that is the exact same ordinance that you all recommended back in April. No changes except that anything referencing phase 3 has been removed. And if you scroll down just a little bit further, there's an area that I highlighted because this was really the only change. And that was with regard to the construction of the park. If you remember, phase 4 of Deer Waters, this phase, is the park that's right above Lakeview that's being constructed right below. And so this park will have a connection down to Lakeview. The prior ordinance noted that this would be would be completed by November 30th of 2021. That obviously did not happen because this one was not recorded. And so we're recommending that the park be completed midsummer of 2022. That's really the only substantive change on this one.
And Thomas, I can't remember, this was under the old mountain zone?
Yes.
Correct? And
Right.
it says primarily, was there any other mixed, was any RMD in there, or was it all?
This one was zone, it is zone mountain, and you guys basically put the MDA over it by way of what the prior code termed a planned performance development overlay. And so this is an overlay on top of mountain zoning.
Please remember that the original Deer Waters project was approved by the prior administration.
Yeah.
Going back more than 4 years now. Just that, we got involved as the phases roll out, but they are vested under the prior approvals prior to 2018 when some of us moved into these positions. Anyway.
I should mention the only other thing that is a little bit substantive is that the MDA does require the dedication of the JSSD parcel upon recordation, and this should be clearly noted on the final plat. We just wanted to make sure that that was included when this goes to final plat review. It's a note in my report. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Okay. So I think I need a little help from Polly here. Because the last one we approved without an ordinance, this one we're approving with an ordinance. I need a little clarification around why this one
I can
warrants
catch
an
you up.
ordinance and the last one didn't.
Lakeview
Okay.
was the last subdivision that we approved without the ordinance concept. And so we didn't carry an ordinance forward because we had done it a little bit differently. So we kept that one. But this one did have an ordinance. It was about 3 months after Lakeview was approved back in, October of 2020. Early in the new year of 2021 is when we started doing the ordinances.
Okay. Thanks, Thomas. So, any questions from council? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to approve an ordinance. Should this actually say phases 3 and 4, Thomas?
Oh, we should redact phase 3. My mistake. It's just phase 4.
Okay. And you see phase 3 and 4 in several places in the whereas.
We need to remove it from there as well. It's been removed from the content, but not in the recitals. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so actually some of the recitals do refer to the initial time. So that's why it was 3 and 4.
You're right. They referenced that it was both that were approved at that time. You're right. Yep.
So I guess, Polly, I just need to know if we leave it this way or we need to make those changes.
Just in the title, we should make the
Title.
changes, but in the whereases, we can leave it the same. And also just as a reminder, you do need to open a public hearing on this as well.
Yeah, agreed. Good point. Thank you as a reminder. All right. So before we move forward on deciding about this, I'll open the floor for public input on the renewal of Deer Waters Phase 4 approval.
Mayor, I don't know if you want to address the email that came in on this.
Somehow missed that. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think I sent it to you and all of council earlier today from Mr. Rudder.
Okay.
Reuter?
Regarding, I saw one from him on the Wildland Urban Interface, but I haven't seen. I somehow missed the one on this.
I think he talked about the dog park or the pickleball court fencing.
I'm
Want me to send it to you again really quickly?
I'm pulling it up now. Just
Okay.
1 second. If you could tell me approximately what time you sent it, then.
Sure. It was yesterday at 5:39 p.m.
Got it. Okay.
So I'm reading it
Let
right
me-
now. It looks like the National Pickleball Association might not actually be a real association, but there is one called USA Pickleball Association. That does have court specifications, fence heights, etc.
His issue was with the fence height. He did not feel that the fence height was high enough. And also he talked about the backstop fence height as well, that there were problems with, it couldn't stop the ball. It wasn't high enough.
Well, I'm not yet a pickleball player, but I'd like to be someday. So I don't know what the right association is to reference as far as, construction recommendations. Does anybody?
I think he did reference another association
Mhm.
that gave requirements for the height of the fence.
Yeah, he did. He referenced USA pickleball.org.
So we could incorporate that into, it's in the ordinance under number 10, 10A, number 1. So we note that it would be a fence at the height in accordance with the standards recommended by the National Pickleball Association. We could simply change that and or add and or the usapickleball.com authority.
.org.
I'm not sure who regulates this, actually. I don't know.
And it says small fence in there. That's not very, specific, is it?
No. Mm-mm.
So. Do you have any standards, Thomas, that surround the pickleball?
I don't know the height of fences around pickleball, but I think that we could probably craft this to say maybe 2 sports courts, pickleball courts with a fence, black vinyl, as approved by the town planner.
So there are significant quantities of pickleball courts in Summit County, Park City. So I think if we wanted to reference anything, that we would be consistent with our neighboring areas that have public pickleball environments. So and we can check with them regarding the whether they use this USA Pickleball or some other organization as a reference.
Yeah, I'm reading their site right now, and they claim to be the national governing body for the sport of pickleball in the U.S. Provides players with official rules, tournaments, rankings, and promotional materials. That sounds legit, right? They're a 501c3 corporation, etc. So they're claiming to be the governing body, the U.S. governing body, USA Pickleball Association. So, I mean, I don't think I'd have any issue changing our reference to their court construction guidelines. if it sounds reasonable.
Well, I think, Chris, maybe what we do is we change the language in here to the USA Pickleball Association, since that's what they're calling themselves. We may have just had instead of saying National Pickleball Association, we call it the USA Pickleball Association, as that's what they call themselves here.
Yeah, I think that's what I just said. Maybe you said it better, though.
Well, yeah, you started talking about adding the fencing details, but I think if we just
No.
stick with that, a height in accordance with the standards by the USA Pickleball Association would be all right.
Yeah, no, that sounds good.
Okay.
Good pickup by the pickleball community. Thanks, guys, for
Seriously.
clarifying.
If you look at the fence behind the gentleman in the photo, I mean, you can get a kind of idea of how high it is.
The backstop. Yeah. So I've seen a couple of courts, Carol, and again, I'm not a player, but I saw one recently built over in Camas and the fence was really low.
Hmm.
I also witnessed our neighbors around the corner playing in their driveway and they had no fence at all. So it is possible, I think, to play without a fence. You just have to run and chase the ball periodically in the street, but
I
do-
think.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, but I do think if there is a legitimate USA national governing body, we should definitely be looking to them for guidance on, in our ordinance here.
And I think, I'd like to give Thomas, which it states in here, the town planner, because I also don't want to put in fencing so high that it disrupts view sheds and stuff like that as well. So if it means that the players have to jog from time to time because somebody hit a very high stroke, then so be it. But we also don't want to, for the benefit of the pickleball community, disrupt landscape and view sheds for the community as well. So it has to be balanced somewhere.
Can I say one thing? I just looked up it says pickleball fencing dimensions, 10 feet high is preferred, but 4 feet can work as long as the top of the fence is padded. I'm with you. You're going to be, with the way we've done our fence, it sits above the park, it sits above Lakeview and below Deer Waters Phase 4. And so you're going to see this fence and park wherever you're at not wherever you're at on the lake, but it's very visible from the lake. And so I think we should just really look into this and maybe come back to get approval from the town once we decide what to do. I'm perfectly fine with that. 10 feet, I've played a lot of pickleball. I've never gone up and measured them, but I played on 6-foot courts and I played on 10 foot. I don't think I've ever played on a 4-foot. And so I'm totally open to coming back or maybe just getting Thomas's approval as the planner to do, to make sure it works and maybe even I can go meet with Mr. Rudder or Reuter. I'm okay with that too, but you are going to see this black fence from the lake. So, we just have to be careful. I just wanted you guys to know that. I'm fine doing whatever size fence you want me to, but you are going to see it from the lake.
That's a great suggestion, to work with Thomas. And, get something that's a balance of aesthetically, fits into the landscape and provides sufficient fencing for, a good recreational round of pickleball.
The other thing we could do, if you let me work with Thomas, we could do some landscaping so you're not just seeing a black fence. Maybe put some trees on that side, or no one wants a lot of leaves in the pickleball courts either. But we can, if you let us, if that gets, however you guys want to word it, we can work through Thomas. I can come back to council. I'm fine either way. And then I have one more thing to say before we vote. Once you guys call on me, please.
Okay, well, I'll take that as you raising your hand, Nate, so go ahead.
Okay, so as you know, Mayor, we've been trying to give that JSSD property for, almost over a year now there's been reasons we haven't. A lot of them have been, we just can't figure out what the MIDA deal with it, that you guys haven't wanted it at one point. The deeds have been drawn for over a year. I hate to tie this plat to that because that just doesn't seem fair. Because I'm ready to record the map right now. And I can sign the
Yeah, I
deed.
think that,
You guys, there's
I
some-
think that's reasonable, in my opinion, that because we're still trying to figure out what all the encumbrances are on that land from the JSSD parcel, that we can adjust the language to say that it's still intended to come over, but it's going to be on a different timetable.
maybe the timetable is upon final approval of like I say, I am ready to give the ground, but MIDA, there's some fees that are owed to MIDA. There's some taxes. You guys have been in that building
Yeah,
over
no,
now, and there's taxes.
Yeah,
There's a lot of things that have complicated why we have not done it, and we're just working through those. But I just hope that we don't have to tie it to
Yeah.
the recording of this map. That's just my hope. Thank you.
So Thomas, I don't remember where that is on a line item standpoint. Can you help me find that?
That is actually, we didn't put that in the ordinance. That was in my staff report. And so if you agree to that, which seems fair, as Nate recommended, then there is nothing to change in the ordinance, actually. It was just a recommendation that was in the text in the staff report.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that the issue is certainly, it's not a lack of willingness on Nate's part. It's our unraveling the encumbrances that are associated with this. And we're in discussions with MIDA to try and get to a suitable solution. And once we do that, then we'll move forward, I'm sure. But okay. So we're going to take out the thought is on this ordinance is we're going to take out the reference to phase 3 in the title of the ordinance. And we're going to, I'm recommending, as far as the pickleball court goes, that we change it to the USA Pickleball Association and add language that says that with the final fencing height to be the fencing height to be finalized between the town planner and the developer.
Okay.
Because the USA Pickleball does allow, it says, up to 10 feet, but they recommend it even as much as low as 4. So you've got some room to work with in
Okay.
there. So I don't think we have to stick
I'll work with Nate,
the
and
fence
we'll
height
look at
tonight.
existing site conditions, and we'll look at potential landscaping.
Yeah,
to
and see
make
what's
sure
around
that
Park City as
makes sense.
well and get a sense of what's being done. That work for council?
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point, Mayor, and that was around the view shed. We certainly wouldn't want to destroy that just to have, 2 more feet or 4 more feet of pickleball fencing height. That would work against what we're trying to accomplish.
We are trying to-
I'm sorry, Chris, go ahead.
I was gonna say, we are trying to accomplish like a recreational amenity for the community, right? I don't know if we'll be having national pickleball tournaments here. Right, so, we want to make sure it's sufficiently built properly, right? But fence height, I don't know, I would like to balance the aesthetics of it and how it fits into the overall community. We were pretty specific about not having an ugly fence around it. We want to make sure that the fence we do put around it is not so high that we do compromise in aesthetics that we're looking to maintain in the area. So I did have one question, and this is actually for Nate. So under number 10, the pickleball playground, the park must be completed by June 30th, 2022. I know that we're going to blink in an instant, we're gonna be in June 2022. It feels, I mean, as much as I would like to have this available for the community, is that a reasonable timeframe?
I forgot to bring that up. It's probably reasonable, but it's going to be pushing it. I was ready to do the pickleball courts, and by the time I got everything graded and everything, you call a pickleball company to come out and install it. They were 7 months out. I called 3 different companies to install it. They were 7 months. And so just to get on their list. So everyone is busy. COVID. I mean, it's just crazy getting concrete. That's a great point. Maybe we say, I'm going to try to get it done this year so we can use it, but maybe October would be more realistic. I don't want to really come back, and I know you guys have such a long agenda. I hate wasting your time with this.
Can we just say 2022, not specify a month, and leave it open-ended, and just, you know,
No,
we
sorry.
cannot.
Sorry to jump in. Yes, legally you can, but it makes it very hard to enforce. If you have a clear date, then you know when it's going to be done. And I understand the challenges that Nate has, but if then what happens is that that is de facto December 31st, 2022. And then you're looking at a whole year later. So
I think Nate's recommendation of October 31st, that would be fine with me. When we were discussing this earlier, a couple of months ago, actually, we knew that was potentially going to be tight. And so I think if we go late summer or basically October 31st, the end of the construction season, fair enough.
Yeah, and I will, now that if I get approved tonight, I will get out and sign contracts. And so my time, the 6 months will start immediately. So, I'm hoping we can have it in so we can use it next year for sure. In this, summer of 2022.
I have a question about the color of the fencing. It seems to me that black is, we'll notice it more. Does vinyl fencing come in any other color besides black? I mean, in the picture, it showed a blue fence. What about a green fence?
They have black vinyl and they have green vinyl typically. Usually black vinyl hides itself a little bit better in our landscape than does green, just because it pops on some of our brown landscape because we're not as grassy green as other areas of the country. Typically black is the most concealing, but I can look at some darker greens and others, and I can work with Nate on that. Absolutely.
Okay.
And are there any clear kinds of fencing that are used in these kinds of situations, Thomas?
I don't know. I suspect there probably is kind of a plexiglass kind of fencing that could be used. Nate may know this better than I do.
I've probably played on 20 different courts, and I've never played on one that was not chain link.
Okay.
So
I would be extremely concerned about the maintenance of plastic, the UV sensitivity of plastic, the brittleness of plastic. I don't think that's the answer. So
we can look at green. I mean, when I guess I can hire an engineer to do a shot from basically the lake upwards, and I'll have Thomas. We can get that approved. I mean, there's things we can do to make that. If you guys decide a 10-foot fence, I can drop the grade a foot or two so it doesn't look so big. But Thomas and I can work through all that stuff, and I promise you guys will be very happy with this park.
That's what I was going as well, Nate. Lower the grade if you can, or even maybe change where it is.
Yeah, I mean,
so it has a lower profile.
You can't change where it is. It's not a good area, but we can definitely. I don't want to block. I've designed it this way already. I don't want to block any views because of the fence. I mean, people are paying a lot of money for those views. So if I need to go in and drop the elevation, we will do that. So maybe Thomas and I can go around a few of the parks and look at the pickleball and if you guys have Thomas approve it, then I think we're set there. But yeah, October 31st would be a fair date that I can definitely get it in.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, let's not all play engineers here, guys. We have Thomas for a reason. So let's let him do his job. So the changes are, we're going to change the title of the ordinance to only to reference phase 4. We're going to change on item 10, the reference to from National Pickleball Association to USA Pickleball Association. We're going to add language that the final height will be determined between the town planner and the developer. And that we're going to change the construction completion date to October 31st, 2022. So I would need I'm sorry?
I was gonna say, do you need a motion? I'll make a motion to move on.
Yeah, I
those.
need a motion to approve an ordinance. Come back to the right title here, so I get it right. An ordinance approving the Deer Waters Phase 4 subdivision located in Hideout, Utah, with the modifications I highlighted just a minute ago. And Ralph made the motion.
I'll second it.
If you'd read. Thank you, Sherry. Second was Sherry. Okay, Chris,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes,
Sherry,
Yes.
and Ralph.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thomas, I'll look for you to work with Alicia to get the languages I just described before it comes to me for signature.
Perfect. I'll clean that up and get it over to her.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Okay, let's go to review and possible adoption of the parks, open space and trails plan as part of the general plan. Who is presenting that?
I will.
Okay,
All right. So the Parks, Open Space and Trails Plan, or POST as we call it for short, was a project that began back in 2019. And I think that it really kind of found its origins in the general plan that was completed in 2019, about maybe 8 months before we really started on this plan. During the general planning process for the community, there was a significant amount of input from the community about the need and the desire for recreational space, trails, et cetera. So in 2019, we completed the Parks, Open Space and Trails Plan, and I can walk through the recommendations tonight, but I should let you know that there was a post committee, a subcommittee that helped create that plan, and that was probably about a 6-month process or so. And so now that plan has been complete, we think that it's important to get it adopted by council as basically an addendum to the general plan, because there are some pretty specific recommendations in there, and it really gets the general plan caught up to date with where the community is in terms of building and build out. And so the Planning Commission heard this a couple of times, and back in November, they made a couple of recommendations for some updated subdivision information to be included in this plan, as well as this recommended overpass or underpass for SR 248, a couple of other minor things. That information was tweaked in the plan. It was slightly revised and updated, and they, on November 18th, recommended, they sent a favorable recommendation to town council for the post plan. So we are recommending that you review the plan and hold a public hearing to adopt it as an addendum to the general plan. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the plan. I could walk you through it at a very, very high level. Chris was certainly very instrumental in the plan. She knows every trail in the community far better than I or probably anybody does. And she played a significant role in this plan. She could present it better than I can, but if you want, I can walk us through it. And maybe Chris has a couple of pieces of input. She's been with it from the very beginning.
Thomas, I would love it if you walk through it since you authored the document, and then if there's any clarifications or additional information, I can offer that.
Okay. So I'll try to keep this quick. The first part of the plan, Mayor, if you don't mind, maybe going to the following page. I think, and maybe go one more. I'll take us right beyond there, actually. So again, I kind of referenced that this document had its genesis in the general plan. And so as you can see here, we kind of went back and did some data analysis. And you may not think it, but Hideout actually does have a significant young population, primarily over in the Deer Mountain area with the apartments, the area that was annexed a few years back. And so you can see kind of on that table on the left, there are a number of young people. That only speaks to the fact that there's a need for recreation for young people as well as for middle age and older. You can also see the rapid increase in population. Typically, when populations are increasing as rapidly as they are in a community like Hideout, you want to get out in front of recreation, because once land is gone and or developed or entitled, it's pretty hard to get it back. You can go to the next page, Mayor. Those word clouds on the right-hand side, those are directly from the general plan that was completed in 2019. And so you could see the one on the left were, what are some of your concerns in the community? The larger the type, the more responses that were received regarding that issue. So you can see, probably based on the look of that, lack of trails was the #1 issue that people had a little bit of consternation with. Certainly growth, construction, et cetera, but trails was significant. On the right, it was, what do we want more of? You can see #1 was more trails. And then on the bottom section, it talked about what's kind of missing in the community, kind of another way of saying, what do we need more of, but slightly different. And again, you can see town center, trails, gas station were probably in the top 3. That's all to say that public input was very supportive of trails, parks, and open space. And so you could go to the next one. We don't have to go through this piece right here. I know that we've got a number of pages and you guys have a long agenda. Go to the next one, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind. I think it's the next one. This is talking about some of the recommendations. We've already done that. You can go to the next one. That was for zoning recommendations. We've actually incorporated parks, open space, trail recommendations in the zoning ordinance. So we've already accomplished that piece there. You could go to the next one. Keep going. Maybe we'll go all the way down to priorities. Oh, maybe right there is, this is the town of Hideout and who we'd have to work with to make trails happen. Certainly, we have to work with the developers within our community. We have to work with the HOAs, but we also have to take into account that we're working with the county and we're working with nearby communities, because most of the trails here in the Wasatch Back, while they may start as a local or an HOA trail, ultimately they get connected to a larger and regional system. So just keep in mind, we've got a lot of players in this. Next page. We can keep going, I think. So right there, maybe. So we've laid the plan out with basically 7 priorities, and they're kind of outlined here. And we go into detail, and we can go into as much detail as you want, but basically priority 1 was to get an understanding of where the town was back in 19 in terms of what developers owe us and where we can start to connect different subdivisions and development sites. And so that was a really kind of a mapping exercise and specifically honing in on those connections. We did do that, and we went into a significant amount of detail there. Priority 2 was finishing up a couple of things that were well underway at that time, and that was Deer Springs and Rustler. And the Deer Springs Trail did go in. Who did that? Hans did that, actually, I think, right? And so that was actually mostly accomplished, that piece. So we were trying to kind of catch the low-hanging fruit and keep this a little bit sequential in terms of prioritization. Number 3 is it noted the importance of this kind of what we call the spine trail, a trail along 248. Given the increased traffic on 248 and the fact that there's not a separated trail, that's probably an important component down the road. It really connects Park City to Camas And we in the town of Hideout are the middle part of that, right? The most significant part of 248. So that offers an opportunity to coordinate with UDOT to try to secure some grant funds for that and create that separated trail for runners, bicyclists, people walking, people with baby carriages, et cetera, just to get them off the highway. The priority number 4 was a recommendation to start to consider, identify, locate safe funds for a park space. Right now, we don't have any public park space in the community. The area off the traffic circle that many people think of as park space is not really, it is not owned by the town. And so it's not a guarantee down the road. And so to think about where park space could be located, there were some areas identified kind of around the circle, of the traffic circle, that could be good future parks, but that's something we have to think about and save money for and or bond for if we think it's that important and or are willing to go out to a referendum. That's a pricey one. Priority number 5 was connecting to the Jordan L. State Park. We've discussed this with subdivisions in the past. We can't technically take a trail from a private subdivision into Jordan L. State Park. When it crosses over the line from Jordan L. State Park to the town of Hideout, it has to land on public property. So it has to be town owned. So recently with Lakeview and Shoreline, I think those are the only 2, Lakeview and Shoreline, where we have, as part of the plat, identified a small area, it might be 10 by 10, 10 by 15 feet, that is a landing pad so that we can send a trail into the Jordan L. State Park. We have to coordinate with them, but this at least gives us the physical connection that everybody has talked about for a number of years. So we have a lot of coordination, a lot of collaboration that is going to be necessary with the park, but at least we have the fundamentals on the ground if and when that happens. Priorities. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
on that
Yep.
one, I'll just add, in Deer Springs, there's a trail that's already stubbed that does end at the state park property. That's another
right.
area.
That's
to
right.
Eventually connect.
That is our northernmost piece. You're exactly right. Yep. So we've got 2 or 3 pretty good connections that are ready to go when the time is right. Priority 6 is connecting the last mile of all trails. Basically what that means is we found that we had a number of trails in the community, whether they were HOA, neighborhood subdivision trails, et cetera, that they didn't quite connect to the next trail, the town-owned trail or another HOA. And so we identified those gaps. And so those are opportunities for future grant fundings to work with those HOAs and connect those trails, just so the community's not always divided by an HOA line, but rather we can cross that trail and utilize it to its fullest extent. And then finally, priority 7 was looking at conservation easements to protect those lands that we would like to see preserved into the future as open space, and coordinating with Rocky Mountain Power for the utility easement that runs through the community offers a pretty significant opportunity. If we can coordinate with them to put a trail in there, that could be a pretty significant town trail. There's some pretty high, pretty steep slopes in there, so it's maybe not complete. It won't be a complete trail, but we can loop it around, et cetera. But that's also a relatively easy space to start to identify future trail opportunities. And so those were kind of the big 7 priorities. Chris, you can add anything that I may have missed, but that's basically the gist of the plan. The rest of it gets into a little bit more finer level of detail.
Well, as you get down further, Thomas, one of the other items was getting people safely across 224, right? Connections. We definitely want to be able to connect, as you're showing that this is a great visual. Mayor, if you're scrolling around, can you go back up to page 24? So up one. Yep, right. Yes, generally you can see Hideout east, I'll call it east and west, either side of 248. We've got subdivisions on either side, and they're essentially cut off from one another with the highway going down the center. And so that's part of our vision, is being able to connect our communities within Hideout and between Hideout and our adjacent and nearby communities that are outside of town.
That's right. And I think that we, easy connections would be crosswalks and lights, as lights go up along 248 in the future. But better connections are those that are either underground or overground. Certainly bigger price tag, but I would argue in this area of the country, probably a necessity to be able to connect over or under that highway in a safe and efficient pedestrian, as a pedestrian and or cyclist. I think that that's something that we have to strongly consider.
I'll remind, I guess I'm on mute. No, I'm not. Okay. Remind everyone that we do have a corridor agreement with Utah Department of Transportation to that includes the addition of 3 more lighted intersections along 248. They just did one of them, which was the Browns Canyon one, but there's projected one at the state park entrance at Deer Springs. There's one projected at Toohey as well, and one at the main entrance to the town on Hideout Trail. And then we also have an over-under in that agreement. So we've got some room to work with from a UDOT agreement standpoint to take those things on when we have the funds and the plan for those. So they should be doable once we understand the timings for the additional intersection. I know UDOT is working right now on developing a design for the one across from Deer Mountain into the state park, particularly because there's no decel lane as you're coming down from Browns Canyon to the state park. So people who go in that entrance to get to Deer Springs and Deer Waters are basically doing it on a 2-lane highway.
And it seems to me it's so much safer to have an underpass like they have at Kimball Junction. I don't know about you or you, but I'd feel a little bit apprehensive about crossing 248, even with a light. The traffic's so darn fast. And how do you get across there? You'd probably have to kind of jog a little bit to get across. So the other side of this is we're trying to get some developers potentially on the upper side of 248. If we go in that direction, they pay for at one of these, but it'd be nice to have 2 underpasses, even at that point where, people feel really safe to, have the ability to cross underneath the highway rather than right in the middle of traffic. Anyway, last point for me was great
comments,
job.
Chris?
It's really super from really enjoyable reading what you put together and how it flowed. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you guys as well. This is a great plan. Took a lot of work and I read through it all, and it looks like something that we really need in this town, and I think it'll be great.
I just thought it was wonderful. I mean, I read through it. I think I read every single line. It was just, to me, fascinating, and I hope we can implement all of it.
We do too, for sure. Thomas, I don't want to create a ton of extra work, and I don't know if it's relevant because the language incorporates it. But when this was first created, the drawings that reflect the subdivisions are lesser than what they are now. So I don't know if we need to add some language, for example, claim and Golden Eagle. I mean, they're shaded there, but they weren't platted at the time, and they are now. So
I can add those, yes.
Or just put some words in.
Yeah, I can.
Something.
And we definitely have referenced all of claim on this page right here. We've got claim, shoreline, Golden Eagle. We have them all referenced, but I'll make sure that the graphic represents that as well.
Yeah, I was just saying that exactly. The graphics would be helpful if they matched.
Thomas, this is Chris. At the beginning, you do some acknowledgements, and you did a great job of acknowledging the original post committee. But I think it would be great to do the current 2021 post committee members in there
Good point,
Maybe
because
you
we've
could
had,
do the 2019 steering committee and then the 2021.
I'll do that.
Because
Yeah,
it's a
because we've had
different crew.
pretty good interest over the past couple of months, and the committee has actually grown, which is really quite nice to see. Yeah,
Yeah, and we'd like to recognize them,
absolutely.
everyone.
And now that we have Sherry on the council, we should probably list her as well.
Yep.
As well as removing Glynis, who's no longer in Hideout.
Okay.
But we can work on that. So you need I guess this is not an ordinance, this is simply a motion to adopt and append it to the general plan, right?
That's right. But I think we do have to open it up as a public hearing. before you
Public
do.
hearing, right?
Well, we're gonna do that. I just wanted to get clear on what the process is. Yeah. Okay. Well, again, thanks for that review. It was very nice, and it's a neat piece of work and very aspirational. So nicely done. As mentioned, it's a public hearing. You've seen a quick review of it tonight. It has been it's been floating around in versions on our website. This is relatively new, and this update is relatively new, so it may not be what you've seen, but it's in intent, it's pretty close to what's been there for some time. So, but we'll open for public input on the post plan. Again, the mechanism is to use your Zoom screen to raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing anything there. So we'll close public input on that, and again, look to move for a motion to adopt the park open space and trails plan as part of the general plan.
I'll move.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ralph. Okay. Sherry,
Yes.
Chris,
That would be adopting with the changes we just discussed.
with the changes we discussed, yes.
Okay, then yes.
Sorry.
Then yes.
Ralph,
Yep. Great job.
Carol,
Yes.
thank you. Okay, Thomas. Zoning map.
Okay. So you all may remember we walked through this at the last council meeting, and so I won't go through the details, but we had a discussion with regard to the neighborhood commercial recommendation up on the soon to be donated to the town area. And the mayor had asked that we go back and look at what the economic ramifications of changing that zoning could be. Based on our research with the Wasatch County assessor, there are no issues. It doesn't matter what it is zoned, as if it's town owned, you are tax exempt, so there would be no cost associated with it. If it were zoned commercial and you opted to allow a cell tower to be built there, a billboard, a small building, and you leased it out to a private entity, since it's still owned by the town and there's a lease, there would not be any property taxes that the town would incur, but there would be what they kind of call privilege taxes. And so that would be a pass-through tax that goes to the end user. Any lease that the town would enter into with that such an entity, we strongly recommend that any and all taxes would be their responsibility. And so it's simply a pass-through. The town would get the bill would be forwarded to the tenant, and they would pay those taxes. But with all of that said, we had some further complications with regard to the MIDA overlay. And Jan and I and Polly had a discussion, and we decided that for right now, let's take the neighborhood commercial out until we can get a much more clear picture with regard to what the MIDA impacts are. We can't get a very clear answer and or understanding and or picture. And so we thought, let's take the neighborhood commercial out, and we can always add it at a later date. It requires a planning commission hearing, and it requires a review and adoption by then town council. So we took it out. So as such, right now, there's no neighborhood commercial on the zoning map, but again, that can be added down the road. So the map you see is the most basic map, existing conditions, and a couple of minor changes that we discussed at the last meeting. If you have any questions.
Hey, Thomas, question here, because we have neighborhood mixed use zone and we have the commercial zone in our newest zoning ordinances. So which one are you referring to, or a combination of both?
We were referring to the neighborhood commercial. That was the recommendation for the area up just south of Deer Springs, right where the mayor has his cursor. And we were recommending neighborhood commercial, not full-scale commercial. That area is a little bit too small for full-scale commercial. But again, we're going to recommend postponing that until we do our research. And if it's appropriate, we'll come back and make the recommendation. There's no rush to do it. Frankly, we don't have anything that's currently planned for that area right now. We were just trying to get out in front of the potential development curve and opportunities, but there's no immediate need to change it. So recommendation is leave as is.
Yeah, and my question was more like, do we have the right terminology here on the zoning? Because I seen it, I remembered what we did was neighborhood mixed use zone, and then we have the commercial zone as two different zones. So I don't know if so did you combine those, or because there is no combination of the two in our new zoning ordinance?
Oh, then clarification may be that it was intended to be neighborhood mixed use. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes,
that makes sense.
specifically. Yeah. Okay.
Which does allow for single family and it does allow for condos and multifamily units.
Right.
Whereas the commercial, I think, only allows for condo hotels and short-term rentals in the residential space. So,
Right.
And they do have, they do have a different, slightly different density as well, 16 versus 20. So anyway,
right. Commercial's more intensive.
It's mostly going to be commercial. I just wanted to make sure I understood where you were going on the terminology.
That's right.
So based on Ralph's clarification, do we need to change the language in this, Thomas?
So that would be for the new zoning would be.
Yeah, neighborhood mixed use zone. That's the way we have it in our ordinance. That's the way we have it in our new zoning ordinance. And I think that's where you were going, right?
Yes. And so this references
public, retail, and commercial.
This references the former town code with NC, but to Ralph's point, it's probably more accurate to consider neighborhood mixed use zoning when we look at this again. So yes, Mayor, we should call that neighborhood mixed use zoning when we look at it down the road. But right now there is
but not for this version.
Nothing. There's nothing proposed on this map that is neighborhood commercial or neighborhood mixed use zoning or commercial.
Yeah, it only becomes important if we're talking to someone, in terms of potential investors coming into this space, so they know what they're restricted or not restricted to. So you're right. There's nothing impending, imminent, but at the same time, there's some early discussions going on, so which goes into the next topic, I think. So just getting it right, I think, is important in case someone's discussing this.
Thanks, Ralph, for that. Any other comments from council on the map before I open it for public input? Okay, and let's open for public input. Again, this was it was addressed publicly some time ago, but we've certainly, since we haven't approved it, we'll take some more. So Mr. Jonathan Gunn has got his hand up. Let me see if I can allow you to speak. And should be able to do that.
Are you able to hear me? This is Jonathan Gunn.
We are now. Yes, sir.
Okay, terrific. Thank you for the opportunity. I just wanted to clarify, because in the memo, in the integrated planning and design memo, I believe it's page 77 of the packet, it essentially says that there's a right-of-way designation clarification. And I just want to make sure that that gray line, which runs south from Overlook right along the border of the Jordanelle Park, I just want to make sure that this is in fact, and I've already clarified this with the Planning Commission, and I want to make sure I get the same understanding from the council, that this is a utility easement access for the purpose of installing, maintaining, improving, expanding utilities, and for local, meaning the town, county, state, and government use only, except for emergency use. I want to be really clear in my mind that this is not intended for general public use, but rather for utilities, emergency access, fire, police, town, government, that kind of thing. And I would appreciate a little clarification on that.
Jonathan,
Well,
that
if
is
you're thinking
correct.
about, sorry, if you're thinking about public and general public use from a vehicular standpoint, that's correct. If you're thinking about general public use by people walking on it, that has always been the intention that we would allow foot traffic, because that's actually going to be where these potential connections to the park will be at some point when we get that sorted out. So so I don't know if that answers your question, but no, not general vehicular traffic, but yes, pedestrian traffic, pedestrian and probably bicycle as well.
Yeah, I always assume that there would be pedestrians, dogs, bicycles, non-motorized type pedestrian traffic. What I want to do is just make sure that it's going to remain closed to the general public for motorized vehicular traffic.
Correct.
That's all I needed. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thanks for your clarification. So Alicia, can you make me a co-host? That's why I can't control things. Any other comments from the public? I'm not seeing them. Thank you, Alicia. Okay. I'm going to close public input. And look for a motion to adopt the proposed zoning map as presented by Thomas this evening. Ralph, you might have been on mute because I saw your lips move.
Also move, Mayor.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sherry. Chris, how say you?
Sorry.
Chris.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. You support that. Okay, thank you. Carol,
Yes,
thank you. Sherry
Yes.
and Ralph.
Yes, with those minor edits.
Help me with the minor edit because we didn't actually mention that.
Yeah, making sure that we have the right terminology for the zoning.
There's no reference to commercial in here. So at the moment, that edit would go in the next version. Am I right, Thomas?
That's right. We took the neighborhood commercial and or, as Ralph correctly noted, it could be neighborhood mixed use commercial, which is part of the new town code. We actually took it out. So
Okay,
you are
good.
correct. It's not on this map, but when we come back, Ralph, you're right. We'll look at neighborhood mixed use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So that's a yes.
that's a yes.
Without the edit. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so it passes. Thank you. The zoning map is adopted. We're now compliant as a requirement of the state of Utah, so good for us. Okay. I hope everybody is ready for a long evening because we have a few more things to cover. The next portion is public input, general public input on topics not listed on the agenda. It's a chance for the public to raise any items that they would like the council to consider or think about in the future. And the process is raise your hand using the Zoom raise your hand functionality. There's one. Okay. Bruce, how are you tonight? You should be
Yeah,
able to
hi,
speak.
everybody. I just had a couple of things. I don't think they were covered. I missed the first part of the meeting. But two things really. The house that's north of Claim, they seem like they're dumping more dirt. They're up at the around the house and the garage area, and it's never been overseeded. Is that something that the council can address?
Well, sure I can, Bruce. I mean, one, that we were informed that they were done, and then we saw that they were doing some more this week. Our public works and engineering guys are engaged with that. There is a requirement for that to be stabilized and reseeded. We're in the process of trying to get to the bottom of what's going on up there so we can get that done.
Okay, great. And then the second one has to do with all the trucks and all the dumping of the dirt down below in shoreline area. Do we have an idea of when that's going to be done? When they got their permit, was there a certain amount of dirt that was supposed to come in? Have they achieved that or not?
They have at the moment, and you may have noticed this week that the truck traffic is significantly lower. They're done for the season. I mean, when they move into future phases, I'm sure there'll be additional needs as that subdivision grows out. But at the moment, they're done with it. There'll still be some heavy trucks from time to time doing deliveries of, steel and
construction material.
Construction materials and stuff, but all the dirt work is pretty much done for the season.
Okay. Is there an ordinance, or should there be an ordinance about changing the topography in town to any great extent?
There is an ordinance. That unfortunately these guys are vested under prior code. But there is an ordinance that you have to basically follow the general grade of the land.
That's what okay. And
But
again,
I can't undo their prior vested rights.
and they're allowed to get this dirt from anywhere. And we don't
As long
have
as it's appropriately clean fill. I mean, they can't bring in grub material and bury it. They can't bring in garbage and bury it. But yes,
And do we have any testing procedures for knowing whether or not there's any contaminants of any kind in there?
good question, Bruce. I'll have to ask Tim to look into that. If you would,
And,
Tim.
and Mayor, I can look into that. You know, this is a question that's been asked by many of the residents before, and it's all part of approved engineering drawings that they have to submit to the town. And as part of that, they have to supply a geotechnical report, who is a licensed PE in the state of Utah, who stamps the design of like retaining walls and extra fill on lots and where it's coming from. When it's actually in the construction phase, we actually haven't, our inspectors go out and, for example, we've noticed that there's some some brush that, you know, we need to clear out of some areas. So we catch things like that. No engineer is going to put a stamp on something and have it bring in material that is not going to help the project, fail in the project, or cause a health safety life issue, because they'll lose their license, and that's a big thing. So there are mechanisms in place that we are monitoring and making sure that they do. And again, you know, it's a concern. I do realize that from the area and the past history with tailings and dirt, but we have, like I said, we have mechanisms in place where we can monitor that, make sure everything is doing good.
Thanks, Tim.
Hey,
Glenn,
this is-
go ahead. You got your hand up.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Glenn, thanks.
Okay, yeah, just to follow up, what everybody just said is correct. We're done hauling fill in for the season, especially with the snow that's here now. And we're very aware, we do check all the material coming in, make sure there's no contaminants or such. And we have our geotech engineers inspecting all the lifts and testing everything once they go back in. So yeah, everything that's been said is correct. We do have a little bit more coming in for backfill on the last building we're putting in, but literally it might be another 20 or 30 trucks, and then those are done. So, and then Tim and I will work directly together, you know, on the inspections and all the geotech reports and such.
Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you.
Other public input? Okay, I'm going to close public input and move to the next steps in the agenda. We've done the Wasatch County Sheriff, and we'll skip on to item 2, which is the Economic Development Committee and feedback. In questions from the council, I guess is really what I should say. I guess, Jan, you want to introduce these guys for us and take us through it? Chan? Ralph, would you like to do it, since I'm not
Oh,
seem
Jan's-
to be able to find Jan.
Jan will be much more
There she-
entertaining, but I'll try to fill in there. We're pretty fortunate. And Jan, if you jump on, just jump in at any time. We're just fortunate to have 3 volunteers here for the Economic Development Committee. And I'm not sure if any of them are on the line, since we've kind of, you know, we're 2 hours into this, 2+ hours into this meeting, but we have Craig Duper, who runs Alon Capital in Park City, ex-Goldman guy, Bear Stearns guy, Scott Davis, who is a real entrepreneur and I think is focused on endurance sports and came from Morgan Stanley in an early career. And then a new person that we've added to the group, Keith Marmer, who is believe his title is Chief Economic Engagement Officer for the University of Utah. So really we're really fortunate to have three really well-qualified, diverse background individuals. And we've already had about half a dozen meetings, two centered around the PID, the Public Infrastructure District. We've had a meeting with MIDA around MIDA. We've had two meetings with the potential developers of the Salzman property, and the committee is it'd be really great if anyone's on the call to just jump in and say, introduce themselves, because there's only three people. Keith wouldn't be here. I think he's actually had a meeting with the governor today. So like I said, we've got three well-qualified folks. Jan, are you on at this point, or would anybody else like to jump in?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now, Jan.
Oh, we can.
We can now.
I'm sorry. I think my. Oh,
Now you're muted, Jan.
can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Sorry. I don't know what was happening with my speaker, but yes, I'm thrilled with the exceptional quality of our committee, and really grateful for people who have stepped up, and including Ralph and his extra time spending. We've really put them to work quickly, and we have required a lot of time from them recently. And just, these are people with exceptional skills, with a background in Wall Street connections and financing, and understanding bonds and revenue streams. And just thank you, everyone. This is really helpful and something that will really benefit the community. And we're looking at sustainable cash flows and ways to maximize the funding opportunities that we have in the town, and look at these very important things right now, so we don't end up in the position of raising taxes beyond what is normal and reasonable. And this work that we're doing right now is very important. So thank you again.
So none of them are on.
Yeah, and I don't
We
think
wore them out.
we probably wore them out. But Craig has initiated or initialed a vision mission statement and our top 4 goals. We can just post that. In the sake of time here, we don't need to read through that, but maybe we can put that up on our website as well.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, Ralph. I think it'd be great if you'd share it at least with council initially, and then we can give them a chance for feedback before we take it fully public.
Yeah, I hear you. And so I was hoping Craig would present it today, for 5 minutes, but doesn't look like he's joined. So we'll either postpone it, or we'll have discussion at the next meeting or something.
Craig is traveling for business right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and I know. Okay, so
it would be nice to create actually a spot on our website for these economic development initiatives and plans, and we hope to keep you posted via email and newsletter.
Great. I'll ask the town administrator to take that on.
Happy to.
Yeah, so I think let's try and get a written report or something next time that we can share with council, so that they can get more familiar with the activities. I've been peripherally involved, and it's Ralph's right. We've got some really good talent, and we have some really good thinking, and it's helping us work our way through a number of issues. They've got some good priorities that are necessary, that are needed financial things for the town. So it's good. All right. I think Ashley's still on. So We'll move on to item 3, which is an update from MIDA. And I think Ashley's presenting, right, Jan?
It's actually going to be Heather, but I'm here.
Oh, it's Heather. Okay. All right, Heather, I see Ashley. So Heather, let's go. Here you are, Heather, yeah. So welcome, Heather. Heather is our key contact currently with MIDA, and do you have anything you want to share? Do you want screen sharing privileges, or are you just going to talk? Heather, you got muted somehow. Heather? There you go. Heather, you should be able to unmute yourself. You're set up with privileges to do that. So I see Heather connected, but she doesn't seem to be responding. I don't know if she stepped away or. She says it's not responding. Let me try again.
Can you unmute her, Alicia, or whoever's hosting? Can you manually unmute her?
I'm trying to, I can't. But maybe Alicia can.
I can't either, unless she's not under her name, but
She's under her name, but I don't seem to have the functionality to unmute her. Maybe, I don't know, what do you think? Log out and log back in? Alicia? Thoughts?
I'm still clicking on buttons just to see, but yeah, I mean, maybe she's gonna have to, because it was working and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So I don't know.
Can you guys hear me?
Now she's sharing. I can.
Okay. Well, we're going to try this. She's going to share the screen and
We lost you too.
a brief full project area update with you guys tonight. We wanted to let you know about the Mayflower Resort Village progress. This is a picture from our groundbreaking opening ceremony from earlier this June. And so we're really proud of that. We were excited that we've gone vertical in the village. If you want to go to the next shot. This is east facing. These are our drone shots from the village area. You can see the Lakeside Mayflower development and your developments. We've got about 5 certificates of occupancy issued from Lakeside Mayflower. And to date, let's see, 40 something from Hideout this year. So this is a good aerial shot of the whole project area. If you want to go to the next one, Heather. Heather, if you want to go ahead to the next one. This is a shot of Skyridge, and you can see the recently completed Jordanelle Parkway. We're just finishing up final alignments on the parkway. We've got 5 certificates of occupancy issued in Skyridge, and about 12 homes that are planned for completion by the end of the year. If you want to advance to the next one. This is a picture of the north portal that is nearing completion. Heather would be the right person to give you more details about the actual completion date, but we're looking at, I believe, spring 2022 for completion of both the north and south portals, which will provide a connection point for the village into the frontage road and connecting to Jordanelle Parkway. If you want to head to the next one, we've got a shot of the village vertical construction. You can see all of the grading most of the grading is complete, and we've got the Pioche village going vertical, as well as the Pioche apartments and the village proper. And then I think we have one more shot of the south portal. And then we'd be happy to, we've got Paula Eldridge, our CFO, online, and I don't know if Heather will be able to unmute if you guys have any other questions, but we just mostly wanted to come and give you a few shots of the generalized progress, the progress of the area. And we appreciate your partnership and your contributions to make this whole military recreation facility project area a success.
We received some questions about the some of the buildings that are going up around. Is that the hotel? Is that housing? Some of the, so any clarification on the ones that are, I guess they're kind of blue-sided at the moment.
Are you able to hear me now? This is Heather. I dialed in.
Yes,
I don't.
yes.
Okay.
We can hear you, Heather. Yeah.
I apologize for that. I don't know why it just would not allow me to unmute. The buildings that you are asking about are the Pioche Village Apartments, which are part of the Extel project. There are 4 buildings. A and D, as in dog, are the furthest along. C and B are coming up quickly, but there are 400 plus units within those 4 buildings. That total project, they were looking at a 24-month build, barring any delays with materials, contractors, those types of things.
Thanks for that clarification. Appreciate it. Are both portals supposed to be, I think, as I understand it, one of the portals is pedestrian type or pedestrian golf cart type traffic, and the other one is actual vehicular. Is that correct?
They actually will both support vehicular travel. We will have frontage road that connects all the way around 40, essentially a big loop, but both will have trail, hard paved trail alongside the roadway as well, for pedestrian travel as well. Those are both substantially complete. They will be coming back and finishing up some of the minor work underneath the decks this spring. We, MIDA, will be picking up the North Portal connector this next year. We're working right now to get the final design in place and hopefully start construction next year on that to get that connection under the North Portal started. The South Portal is going to take a little bit longer, but we are also hoping to maybe get that started next year as well.
Cool.
Also, for your awareness, we are working with UDOT and Wasatch County on the west side frontage road. Some of it, obviously, we're constructing a connection piece between the North Portal down to basically connect into where Deer Hollow Road connects in from Deer Crester Valley, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay. So we are working on that.
Because I worked there.
Perfect. So yeah, we are working on getting those designs in place as well, so we can start the grading and construction on that next year as well.
Other questions from council?
I would like to add, I don't know if Ashley hit on this as I was trying to get connected. We have a lot of progress with the trails that has happened as well. Skyridge themselves, they have put in about just under 5.5 miles of soft surface trail. They've got 4 miles of hard surface, and then another 2 miles of equestrian trail has been underway by what will be their equestrian center. And then we've also had lots of progress at the Ross Creek and Crandall Point. That was part of a grant that we worked with the county and state parks on. So the perimeter trail is now complete to Crandall Point. North Skyridge connector is looking to be completed in spring of 2022, excuse me. And about 90% of the engineering is done for the Ross Creek and the Rock Cliff improvements as well. So we continue that work and are quite excited progress and where that's going for the community.
For those of you that spend some time down at the Ross Creek side, you will see surveyor stakes all over the place if you walk the Hideout single tracks. And that's part of what Heather's referencing there. Council, questions? Okay. Well, Heather, Ashley, thank you very much. Thanks for sitting with us so long. Sorry we took 2.5 hours to get to you.
No worries. Thank you so much, Mayor Rubin and council for your time. We appreciate it. And we look forward to working with your economic committee too, moving forward. So thank you.
Great, thanks. Let's see if I'm gonna knock her screen share off. And we'll go back to, hopefully you're seeing the council agenda again. And not my email. So the next topic is the Wildland Urban Interface Code. We are not looking to take any action on this tonight. It's too new for council. But we wanted to at least give you some background before you have to start wading your way through it. It's a fairly comprehensive package with lots of language. So I'm gonna let Tim kick it off, and then we also have on the phone tonight, we have Troy Morgan from the Wasatch County Fire District to help us better understand what we're looking for when we look at this code and what it means for us. So
yeah,
Tim,
thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So the Wildlife Urban Interface Code is a great thing that we need to have in place to help kind of protect some of our property and some homes in Hideout. And I'm going to pass it off to Wasatch County Fire here a little bit, that they can speak a little bit more to it. But we've taken this code, and Polly and Cameron and the legal group has really done a great job with it. And we've kind of adopted this from other places, Wasatch County and some other towns with their language, and kind of morphed it to fit what we have. And so kind of what you read, it is a long document for sure, but it's very important to have. And let me turn it over to I think is Clint here, Mayor? Did you say from Wasatch County?
Troy's on, but before
Troy.
we get on to Troy, let Polly or Cameron, since you spent some time on this, can you help us understand the legal significance of this?
Yeah, so, and actually what this is the 2016 Wildland Urban Interface Code. It is approved by, even though there's a more recent, we call it the WUI, W-U-I even though there's a more recent WUI, I think from 2021, the state has only adopted the 2016. What we are proposing, and Ryan also has dealt a lot with this, and also the fire district, but is that 2000 is what the state has allowed for, and we haven't actually made any changes to the actual code. The idea of this is to create defensible space around homes. It creates better protections. We did look very closely at this to see, because not a ton of jurisdictions have adopted it. So I'm working with this also in Big Cottonwood Canyon and other places, which has very different challenges than what exists in Hideout. The one change we did make is if you go to the last page, there's a worksheet, and that worksheet allows for a little bit more. If you get to a certain number, then you have to keep it under a certain number. So what that sheet does is, if you happen to have a big tree by your house that you really don't want to cut it down, well, then maybe you need to do something else. Maybe you need to have other things that'll lower your score. And that's that Appendix C. So, it is a good program.
Give me a rough idea what page number it's on, Polly?
Let me see if I can pull up.
I can just keep scrolling, but I didn't know if I could.
Yeah, maybe go to the next item and then just go up one, if that's, oh, here we go. So you're
Oh,
close.
that's a good idea. Good idea. There you are. You're thinking.
Yeah.
Scary. All right. So we'll go to 5 and then I'll roll backwards. There you
There
go.
it is, right there. So this worksheet helps allow for, if you have certain topography, then you have higher numbers, certain roofing material, and then you can play with it in order to get to the number that is allowable. So you can see you want to keep it below, I think it's extreme hazard. I can't remember what the fire district is recommending be kept to moderate, or if it can be high hazard. So it is, as Tim said, it's a great program. It's a great ordinance to have. It's going to make things safer. I can say from someone who was evacuated this summer that it's pretty scary to have fire, and to know that you have the most defensible space around your home is the best thing for individuals and the community.
So Troy, I know you've been hanging on. I appreciate that. If you want to jump in and talk some more about this, we'd love to hear from you. And just for everybody's information, Troy is the district fire
warden.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having me, Mayor and council. Appreciate you guys taking the opportunity to look at this code. It's something that the fire district truly believes is a benefit to the citizens of Wasatch County. Just to speak on the code a little bit. So we'll stick with the fire hazard severity form that you have pulled up now. The purpose of this form, like the last person was talking about, is to minimize your score. You want to keep that score to a moderate. And what that does is it just lessens the requirement of what we call defensible space. Defensible space is the amount of fuel reduction around your structure that we can safely put a fire apparatus and firefighters in an area to safely and effectively, try to protect the home. So when she did state about the tree being close to the house, there is some wording in the code where one of the big things is you cannot have any trees within 10 feet of a structure. So that's being the eaves and the tree crowns of the trees. So there is that 10-foot buffer. And then from that point, you do have your defensible space requirements. The code it's multiple code. It's a vegetation code, it's an access code, and it's also building material code. So Wasatch County has adopted the 2006 Wildland Urban Interface Code as well as Heber City, and we work hand in hand with their building code officials. What we're looking at as a fire district, we look at the subdivision, the access, the vegetation, and then the building code officials will pretty much take on the building construction portion of the code. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Like you said, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Troy. I think our challenge is going to be that a lot of the town of Hideout was built under code where there's only 10 foot of open space between the building line and the lot line. So I think you're going to find that we're going to find that there are a number of homes that have trees within 10 foot because they can't go 10 foot or they're on the next guy's lot.
Right.
So that, and I'm sure that while we can encourage people to cut their branches back and stuff, I'm sure nobody's going to want to rip these out. So we're going to have to think about that pretty carefully as we look at this. I think that's probably the biggest barrier as far as your defensible space goes in general.
Yeah, and I get that. I understand lot sizes. So this code is not a retroactive code unless the town does an ordinance to make it that. Right. This is going to be future developments, a lot of that stuff on the north side of 248. It's extremely concerning to the fire district. It's all south facing aspect, a lot of oak brush, a lot more homes being built. It's something we want to be proactive in getting ahead of instead of reactive, for sure.
And one of the things that we did do in our new zoning is we essentially doubled the side setbacks, and we took that view to improve our view sheds, but actually works well for this kind of situation. One question I had was, does this apply to new individual homes? Does it apply to the subdivision? Does it apply to the town, so to speak? How do you look at this this analysis that you're doing here?
So as it is now, when somebody submits for a building permit and they're designated in the urban interface, they would have to submit a landscaping plan that shows the existing vegetation and proposed vegetation along with this filled out form. And then what happens is we review it, the building code official reviews it. And then once the applicant's approved, before we will sign off on occupancy, we will go and do an on-site inspection, make sure that the trees and all the vegetation, access, that kind of stuff is in code compliance.
So anytime there's a new subdivision or new home, this would be part of the application process?
Yes, a new home, a new building permit. The subdivision's pretty much done in the DRC review.
Okay.
This is all going to be individual homes.
Gotcha.
In my review of this, Troy, I like the thought process of the questionnaire. I think it's a great tool for anyone thinking about building to ask themselves these questions and understand what we're up against as we think about building. Because as you rightly point out, some of our topography is outrageous slopes. Getting guys down there with equipment and ladders and all the rest of it when you're on a 20% grade is pretty treacherous. So those are things you think about when you're building your house. So then you say, okay, so maybe I do need to put fire sprinklers in for example, to help the process. Even though the code doesn't require you to do that on an individual home unless it's of a certain size, you might want to do it just out of just pure safety and preservation of your property. So I think it makes you think about stuff that you might not think about as you're working with your architect to build.
Right. So I always tell everybody it's the good neighbor policy. So what we're trying to accomplish is, one, if we have a wildfire approaching a community, we keep that wildfire from burning down homes. The other aspect is if we have a structure fire, we want to keep it out of the vegetation and stop it from causing a major wildfire. So, I mean, codes aren't always perfect, but this is a good one, and it gives us a good start, on clearing some of that hazardous vegetation.
Thanks, Troy. So council, we're not gonna, as I said, we're not gonna take action tonight, but we wanted to give you some background. Our staff has been through it and looked at it and carefully, and generally feel pretty good about what's in here. I'd like you to try and find time to actually read it between now and the next meeting or so that we can bring it back up and see where we are as far as adoption and what we might want to do about trying to create a safer, more defensible community.
All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Any more questions for Troy, guys, while you're here, or Tim?
I don't have any questions. I'm looking forward to reading this, though. I think it's very important for our community. I am also worried about the potential for a wildfire or, a structure fire spreading and doing great, significant damage to property and human life.
For sure. Yeah, this is, we all know what the wind is like here. Get that wind and a fire at the same time, we got a mess. Got a real mess. So thanks again, Troy. Thanks for waiting it out. Appreciate it very much. And my regards to Clinton, the chief.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you.
So item 5 is next, and that is something we've been talking about all night with the other ones because we had missed the timeline, so we had to reapprove. Well, in this case, we haven't missed the timeline, but shoreline phase 2A amended and 3 have not been recorded, and they're running out of time, and so Glenn has requested that we give them a 6-month extension to get primarily due to material supplies. They haven't got everything in, and that we require to allow them to record a plat. So our code requires like the sewer system to be in and so forth, and it's not there, not through any fault of Glenn's particularly. So Glenn believes that they'll be fine by the spring. So he's looking for a 6-month extension. And I've talked with our engineering folks with that, and nobody, and Thomas as well. I don't think anyone on the staff has any issues with that granted extension.
I'm here if anybody has questions.
Thanks, Glenn.
So yeah, just real quick, actually the sewer is 100% done and passed. And our biggest delay is when we got approvals back in June. Literally the construction industry now it's 12 to 16 weeks by the time you order manholes to get them. So literally we sat waiting on manholes for 3 months, and then we go to town. So anyway, our sewer and water's done. Our sewer is done and tested. Our water's probably a third done. We now at this point have all our materials on site, and we're hoping literally by the end of the December or the very middle of January to have the water done. And then it's just a matter of finishing up the sewer or the storm line. So we're full confident by early spring, as soon as the snow melts, we'll finish up the road base, get curb and gutter and asphalt down.
So I'm recommending that we approve the extension.
I have no problem with that. I think we should do it. So is there a motion or something that has to
Yep.
be made?
If there's no other questions, then yeah, we do a motion to approve an extension for Shoreline Phase 2A and 3. There's 6-month extension for 2A amended in 3.
So moved.
Thank you, Chris.
I'll second it.
Second. Thank you, Ralph. Okay. Carol,
Yes, I approve.
thank you. Chris,
Yes.
sorry. Yeah, Chris. Okay. Sherry,
Yes.
thank you. And Ralph.
Yes.
Okay, Glenn, you got it.
Okay, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You bet. We have dealt with item 6 earlier. I want to defer item 7 to next month. When we reviewed the financial data this afternoon, Jan and I, we found some mistakes in the document, and we need to get those cleared up before we bring it forward. So we'll bring that back to you in January. Item 8. We've already talked about this once before. It's come back. I think last time you had asked for a chance to read it and all that kind of stuff, so that's been done. I don't know who's presenting this. Is this Tim? Is this Ryan? Who's presenting this?
And I can jump in a little bit too and just tell you, I consulted with the Utah Government's Trust, our insurance company, and they had some suggested language for the no fault section that's at the very end. And so I looked through that and thought that it made sense. So we've put that in there. So I can speak to that part of it, but the technical stuff I will leave to our engineers. And I think Abby spent a lot of time on this one, if I recall correctly.
Abby was on the meeting. I don't know if she's still here or not.
I'm still here.
Okay. So you want to kind of do a quick summary, Abby? I know there's a lot of engineering stuff here, and we talked
There
about.
is a lot in here. A super brief overview and summary. It's primarily for maintenance and operation and design and documentation for the sewer system in Hideout. So we talk about what to do when there's a sewer overflow, who cleans it up, who it has to be reported to. We have wording to talk about deficiencies. If there's a section of the system not working, how to go about getting it fixed, and kind of how to weigh what's more important or more pressing than maybe other issues that might be found over time. We go over the GIS system and how Public Works is able to use either the forms and templates provided in this document, or they can use GIS, which is currently what they've been doing, and it's going pretty well. Toward the end, well, I guess in the middle, approximately like page 10, 11, we have a couple of maps in there. One of them.
Before we get to that, sorry, Abby, before we get to that, we have changes in several of these roles on page 5. If you work with Tim, we'll get you the right names now. We have a new sewer operator. We have a new director of public works, et cetera. So.
Okay.
One thing I'll add to this, and that great catch, is this is a living document. And so in addition to what Abby was explaining on it explains what to do with spills and problems, it also covers the maintenance. And I think that's what we're going to get into on how to not have spills and problems, and what we need to be doing to make sure it keeps working smoothly. So this is a bit of a living document. We'll certainly get those updated, the roles updated, but as we go, we're going to find and learn new things about the system. And it's intended that as we learn new things, we update this document on a regular basis.
Yep, good point. Because I mean, we are for the first time in that we're aware of in Hideout's history, we are actually cameraing, if that's a word, we are putting cameras down all the sewer lines and learning what might be in there that needs to be paid attention to, whether it be some settling of the sewer lines, which create potential places for materials to get trapped, or whether there's tree root and that kind of stuff, infestations and all that kind of stuff. So we learn about that, and we learn what we need to be working on. So and we spent a lot of time and money on it this year, trying to get a good portion of the town's sewer line mapped and understood. So kudos to the team for working on all that.
And a lot of those mappings and sewer inspection videos we're starting to get on GIS as well, so that anyone who has access to the GIS is able to look at those videos if you're curious about specific segments of this system.
And I think Ralph, sorry, Abby, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Phil.
So Ralph, I know you had some questions last time about the things we found already, and I mentioned, so Tim, and Tim mentioned earlier that it's one of the projects that we're pushing forward with the community development block grant is some sewer work to do to address some of those issues. We have received great support from both the GCD development team and the Deer Waters Lakeview development team in helping us come up with an improved lift station design. So we're getting a lot of help there, and we're looking forward to, I think, again, the plans aren't quite finalized yet, but our plan is to put in a much more robust lift station and take out some of the lesser long life stations that are around, and put in something that's going to last a good long while. So this process that they've been going through has really helped us not only to identify, but also to put the projects together to go after making the changes to address the concern areas. And as you see, they've put together now, frequency for cleanings, and again, as the inspections go on, we'll continue to figure out where we need to do what things. So
This map you're on now is just more in depth. We tried to determine which year each section of the pipes could be cleaned. Of course, this is flexible, especially as the town gets built out. It might make more sense to do different sections at different times, either with funding or availability, or if there's issues anywhere.
The goal is to work through the entire system, once every 5 years. It's sort of typical of that, at least the first time through. And as Ryan has mentioned before, once we get more data, we'll know whether we have to do it every 5 years or whether there's portions of the town that can go 10 years or whatever. So we can get the appropriate spend for the appropriate level of service required.
So, hey, this is
Did I steal your thunder, Ryan?
Quick question about the cleaning. And I'm looking at the map you're showing. Just briefly, what has been cleaned? Like I'm just not aware of the current maintenance, where we are today.
In 2019, most of the blue area was cleaned, 2018 and 19. And then this year, most of that yellow orange area was cleaned. And so between those 3 years, we've done almost the entire active system. And then you'll see over on the north end, most of those lines are new. And so they haven't been done yet, but they were cleaned and inspected as part of their acceptance. And so we've effectively done those recently. And so we really hit almost the entire town at this point once over. And then I was going to echo what Phil said about, this is the standard plan. And then as we learn more, there's sections that can be done less. You'll also see sections highlighted in yellow based on slopes, conditions, and flows. Those are key areas that we're suggesting that you clean more frequently. And the effort there is there are places where you could have problems, and we want to observe those more frequently and make sure that we're on top of those. As we get more data there, I suspect some of them will come off the list, and there may be other areas that get on the annual or even more frequent list to make sure that we continue to have a smooth running system.
And as we've told the council before, the yellow line that crosses 248, our intention is to separate that and tie in the uphill side of town to the JSSD main, and then have the downhill side go through our lift station so that we don't put as much demand into that yellow section. So.
The one question I had on the reread of this is on the kind of the tail end of this report, which is the claims program.
Are you getting into, you say claims like legal claims? You're talking about claim the development?
Well, it's really, it says no fault sewage backup claims program where a homeowner can file a claim against the town. It has to be within 30 days. And I think we leave some sections blank in here as to what the maximum is supposed to be, maximum payments, for instance. Is that all to be filled in? And is 30 days adequate? And then maybe the last question is the town insured for this, or is this just coming out of our operating budget if there is a set of claims?
We are insured with, go ahead, Polly, go ahead.
Sorry, yes, we are insured, and there shouldn't be blanks in there. I wonder if there was just a little mess up between the versions, but I thought that we had the right one. It's 5,000, and I can look it up.
Yeah, it looks like they're blank on my version, Polly, and they've got like red X's in here. And they would have to match up against our policy for coverage typically, or at least we would have to know that.
The numbers I have in there were from our insurer. There it is, maximum payment. So maybe you saw an earlier version. That's very possible.
Oh, okay. Not sure what version
I'm
I have
sorry
from
about that,
Alicia, but my version, I have just a blank line with.
Well, she sent out this very late today, Ralph. So unless you're looking at the one that she sent out at 5 o'clock tonight, you probably don't have that.
Okay, so we have some numbers in there.
Yeah, and that was directly from our insurer. So we consulted with them with the men. So we are covered.
So I'll digress a little bit. But the state has laws that protect a municipality if they are doing the things that the sewer management plan talks about, like the inspections and that kind of stuff. It basically says that they define that as being a reasonable and customary state of maintenance and service. And therefore, if you're doing those things, there is a limit to the liability that you can look for from the municipality. And so by having the sewer management plan, by following the sewer management plan, we basically create a level of indemnity for the town from any kind of event because we're doing all the right stuff. We're doing all the stuff we know to do. We're scoping it, we're cleaning it, we're inspecting it. We're doing everything that's known to do about keeping a sanitary sewer system operating properly. And without this being not a plan being adopted and then followed, it creates an opportunity for liability above what the state protections are. And so it's important for us to A, do what we say we're going to do, and B, and as a result of that, indemnify the town from significant legal responsibilities because in case we hadn't been. So.
And I'm curious, is this a separate policy or is it fall under our general liability policy?
I believe it's under our general liability policy.
There are policies that homeowners can take as well. There are I forget what they're called on your insurance policy, riders, I guess.
Yeah.
You could checkbox if you have concerns on a personal level about an event like that, where you can protect yourself beyond your own personal general liability policy by checking off the box and saying, I want to take additional coverage in case of whether it be a sewage or a water flooding incident or whatever. You have all the things in your normal homeowners you can select. So so really the discussion is, are you, council, are you at the point now, having seen this a few times, listened to the engineering staff, et cetera, at a point where and the fact that Polly has validated that our liability limits in the policy are aligned with what our insurance carriers are, feeling comfortable enough about your understanding that you're prepared to allow us to adopt this?
I had one question when I read this.
Sure.
Is there, it might be in there and I might have missed it. Do they inspect more often where there's a lot of construction and development? Because there's a lot of debris that gets in the sewer, and if it's on the every 5-year schedule, that could be too late.
Yeah. So one thing we do on that is before we accept it, so after it's in the ground, before it's accepted, we require the developer to clean and camera it. So when the town takes it over and assumes responsibility, we know that it has been cleaned and any construction debris has been removed. We did have problems when individual homes were connected, a bunch of debris getting in, and we've adopted an inspection program to watch that more carefully. And then those red spots do kind of work around where there is a lot of residential development to make sure that if we do have a lateral dump dirt into the sewer, that we catch it sooner than 5 years.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great question, Sharon. Yeah, we sadly learned the hard way that we needed to be more aggressive in requiring our developers and our home build. It's not just for developers, it's also for homeowners as well. Anybody who's tying into the sewer system is required to clean it and take a picture. And our inspectors have to supervise anytime you cut into a sewer line. So we make sure that any material that, to tie in, that material is removed from the pipe and not allowed to float downstream. Additionally, like to commend, our Tim is, I guess he's waiting for the final approval, but he's taken the class and expects to be certified as a sewer operator. Daniel comes to us with a sewer operating background. So we've got the capabilities within the public works team, engineering public works team, to help us keep up with this, which is great. Any other questions from council? If not, I'd love to get a motion to adopt the Town of Hideout sanitary sewer management plan.
Yeah, also move there.
And I'll second.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, Sherry,
Yes.
thank you. Chris,
Yes.
thank you. Carol
Yes.
and Ralph,
Yes.
thank you all. It's a good thing for us to have. We appreciate it very much. And thanks to the team that's been working on this. It's a really nice piece of work. Abby, I know you put probably 1,000 hours into it, so nice job.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Tim, winter parking.
Oh, I've been waiting for this. I have been. So we had some changes that we wanted to make sure that we got done on this. And so working with Chris and working with Cameron, we wanted to update some things, make it a little bit more clear. And what you're looking at is kind of the three of us putting our heads together and taking some constituents' comments in regards to, maybe clearing up some areas. And so we've done that. And basically, we've changed to, for example, we've actually made sure that we have changed the dates in the ordinance to match our signs that are on the street. For example, we've clarified a little bit in regards to what is the minimum width of the roadway for the legal aspect in regards to the town. And so I think we've really done a pretty good job, and with the help of Chris and Cameron, I'd like to present this to you guys tonight for an amendment and to our ordinance.
Okay, you want to take us through the changes? I think I'm in the place where they've started.
Hey, can I just make a comment, Tim? I checked the sign.
Of course.
I checked the sign that's by the town hall, and I believe it's October 31st to April 15th.
Okay. It is. Okay. We'll definitely look into that to make sure. I thought we had, maybe it was just a typo on that, but we'll change that to October 31st. So Cameron, is Cameron on tonight?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, hey, Cameron. So you want to
change the signs, Tim?
Yeah, let's change the signs. Let's change those signs. So Cameron, let's walk everybody through what we've done to kind of make this a little bit more clear and for the update for the ordinance.
Okay, so the main ones are the dates and the times. There were a couple. Originally, it was from midnight to 8, and there was construction parking ordinance that allows starting at 7. The reason we had left it at 8 originally was simply because we were expecting to have a construction parking plan that would restrict that and some of the other parking ordinances. But when and if that comes, we'll reconcile it all. So we've moved all of the times and dates to be consistent, or at least what we thought was consistent with the signs at the time. Because we moved the times, we removed 718040 completely, just because the prohibited parking times really accomplished pretty much the same thing. Then the next section down, 050, is where we added some clarifying language. So section A, 050A, we added the provision to allow delivery drivers to park and deliver their products. And then under B, there's a very complicated discussion of how to calculate an intersection, but you basically take a line from the intersecting road and measure from that line. And so we've added, I mean, the intersection is what an intersection is, but then the blind curve, there wasn't a definition really. And so we added some language to clarify what that point is measured from. And I don't think there was much below that. Oh, and then this one was what we discussed at the last time we looked at this statute, was what's the definition of a residential street. And originally it would basically be everything that's not an artery or a cul-de-sac or a dead end, but we added in a definition. This other section would be helpful to get some guidance on. So originally it was within 8 hours of a snowstorm of 4 inches or more. In talking with Tim and Chris, we felt like moving that to within a day of the weather event would be helpful. It does make me a little bit uncomfortable to have sort of that vague time period. I prefer, I guess, that it read like 24 hours or something along those lines, but some guidance from the council and the mayor would be helpful.
Well, on that one,
We have, sorry, Chris.
oh, go ahead.
I believe we have some language in somewhere in our code that talks about the timeframes as well. So if we're going to change it here, we're going to have to modify the code somewhere too.
Yeah, well, this section is only going to apply from the dates in this section, so it wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, but
others.
But we have language in our code about snow removal somewhere. I don't know if this is the only place, but I think we do, saying that we've got a duty to clear it out within a certain amount of time. So we'll have to check that.
Okay. I think this was pulled from the regular parking section into the winter section.
It may be, or maybe, so I'll have to just confirm, because I kind of remember that we as a council, we spent time committing on what's a reasonable amount of time. Talked a lot about, 4 hours is too soon, that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that was in here or if that was somewhere else, but it rings a bell for me anyway. So we'll do a little research on that. Chris, you were going to say.
Yeah, about the section, it did say, did it say 8 hours? Anyway, I had been thinking about recently the federal government and the airlines worked out a deal with international travelers coming back from overseas on airplanes now and having to have a COVID test. There was some flexibility in the language that they worked out with the airlines, which was instead of saying it had to be 24 hours before your flight, it just has to be the day before your flight. And so the thought here and the thought that I had conveyed to Cameron and Tim was, it really depends when the snowfall ends, how much, when it ends. Does it end at 11 p.m. or does it end at 8 in the morning? So it seems like what I was thinking about in being less prescriptive is that we would allow some flexibility instead of being very specific, 8 hours from the end of the snowstorm. Okay, if the snowstorm ends at 10 p.m., that means by 6 a.m., all snow has to be cleared. Is that too limiting? And so I was thinking, you know, that kind of flexibility may not be as easily enforceable, certainly, but it would be more practical.
Correct.
Tim, and I think Dan is on as well, at least he was. I'm personally okay with giving the team a reasonable time frame to get that done. I mean, we know they're out there working hard. We saw them driving all day. They're driving tonight as well.
Correct.
And probably tomorrow as well.
And
So,
tomorrow too.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and so that's
but-
why,
so-
you know, I think if we had a little bit more, you know, staff in that area, then I think, you know, a set time frame would be beneficial. But since it's you know, since the staff is there where we're at, you know, and the potential for potential breakdowns of vehicles or plows, where we have to replace a plow, for example, we just thought that would be a little bit more helpful for us in case if something comes up that we just weren't expecting.
I don't have a real issue with that. How does that last sentence go with the 1 day? Do they conflict?
So for the 8 hours, you mean, Mayor, where it says right on that last sentence? Yeah. So that's for private streets. So we want to make sure if we have any private streets that they do take care of that within an 8-hour period.
Got it. I got it. So Reflection, which is private, for example, needs to take care of their business. Gotcha.
Correct. Yep, correct. So hopefully this is a little bit, you know, it cleans it up and makes it a little bit more enforceable. And so we're excited about it, and we do apologize. We had some, like Cameron said, we had some edits that we thought we did, and I guess it just didn't make it in, but we had talked about those things. But this is what you're seeing now is the final edits of hopefully everything in regards to the ordinance. So thank you for considering it. It's much needed, much helped, and we'll be definitely using it here in the next upcoming months.
And one other comment is we did have a conversation about, you know, we really are intentionally trying to get all vehicles off the street between midnight and 7.
Yeah.
Intentionally, no, you know, and then, you know, during a snowstorm, I did notice today on Longview, over on, you know, heading toward Rustler, that normally there could be a dozen or more construction vehicles, but because there was a snowstorm happening, there was only one today.
Yeah, and the test is going to be tonight. I mean, you know, when me and Daniel go out tonight, I'm sure we'll see some on the street, and so we'll go and do kind of like the sheriff's department does in regards to, you know, making contact, knocking on their doors and letting them know, hey, can you help move your vehicle so we can plow and stuff like that. So we'll see. It's going to be an interesting night in regards to this, and hopefully we can not encounter too many problems.
I had one comment on something I read in there about the fire hydrants being the responsibility of the homeowners that own the lots. And that just concerns me. There's a lot of people that live in California, own a lot here, and probably don't even know they have a fire hydrant on their lot. And I think that should be a town thing because it's too important.
Yeah, and so we did have it. Go ahead, Mayor.
Go ahead, Tim, please go ahead.
So yeah, we did have a discussion amongst the three of us, and really, you know, it's tough. I look at some of these fire hydrants in town, and a lot of them are outside the public utility easement for whatever reason. And so since it's on some are on private property, we can't access that. So it has to be up to the homeowners to make sure they keep that clean, for not only their for their safety, but to help aid Wasatch County Fire to get there in case of an emergency. So, but again, if they can just keep it clear and just shovel as they're out shoveling, in that general area, that would be a great help for us. And we know as snowplow operators, when we see a hydrant, we're trying to make sure we don't plow the snow into the hydrant and create extra work for the homeowners. So that's kind of why that was stayed as it is. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of these people that are moving from different areas may not be aware of what they have and what they're supposed to do in regards to a fire hydrant.
Maybe.
So Sherry, let me jump in on for a second here.
Okay.
So what we have done in the past is if these are if the hydrants are on full-time residents, we make that contact so they're aware. If they're individual lots, we make the HOAs aware in the areas like Rustler and Shoreline that they have a responsibility to clear those hydrants because most of those are on HOA land. We hold them accountable. On where there's hydrants, but not a lot of development. For example, well, at least last season, there was a fair bit of swing hawk that wasn't. We held the developer accountable, and then the guys will dig some out too. So, I'd rather have the language and be flexible around the recognition that not everybody's here all the time than not have the language and take it on, because it's a fairly time consuming task for the team and it adds cost. So, we're trying to be reasonable in our approach to this around, making sure that, so, if it's outside on my property and I live here full time, then, I should feel accountable for getting that done. There's one across the street from me that's on undeveloped property. It is the responsibility of the developer who owns the land to do that. But more often than not, I'll go dig it out anyway because I want it clear because my house is across the street.
Okay, that makes sense. I just
Yeah,
want
Mayor,
to make sure
So
that people,
that's kind of where I'm thinking it makes sense, is to keep it in and be lenient
maybe
as opposed to.
the people that own lots that aren't here, maybe they could, some kind of letter could be sent out to them just to make them aware, and they can make arrangements.
That's a good thought. We can do that. Yeah, we know where they are. We have them on a map, so we can overlay them, and they're on the GIS, which has the plat map. So we should be able to identify which hydrants are on part-time land or any land. So I think maybe we just send it to everybody who's got one on their property, whether they're full-time or part-time, and just make sure they know if they're not developer owned or HOA owned.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think we
that's a
can do
great
that.
suggestion. I think we should definitely do it. Because even on my street, there's undeveloped land with a hydrant, which I end up digging out all the time because I feel the same as you, Mayor. Near my house, if there's a fire, I want the fire department to be able to access it.
I actually just bought a new lot and I actually have no idea if there's a fire hydrant on it, so I'm gonna go check.
So we'll take that as an action item. Sure, that's a great upgrade. We'll get the engineering guys to sort through that and work with Alicia, and we'll get something taken care of there, so that they know that. And we can put something in the newsletter as well, because we have a newsletter going out again, so we can put it in the newsletter as well. So once again, I'm interested in a motion to amend the winter parking for vehicles and snow removal, the ordinance for winter parking for vehicles and snow removal from the streets. We passed this last time. It was late and we slammed it in, And upon reflection, it needed a little bit of tweaking, so we've tweaked it and like to, once again, motion to get it done. And with the caveat that we changed the date in the adopted modification to October 3rd.
Yes, yes, Cameron, I'm not sure. We must have missed that. We must have that time fingered that one, Cameron.
Yeah, so moved. Can I do that?
Who
Yeah.
was that?
Chris.
Yeah, you can. That's Chris. Okay, thank you. Second. Somebody want to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sherry. Carol?
Yes.
Thank you. Ralph?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And Chris?
Yes.
Okay, and modifications are accepted as we just discussed. So thank you very much. It gives clearer for everyone, and we'll repost this so that the town is aware of the changes.
Mayor, can I make one comment? I just want to, we got some good citizen input on this.
did.
And
Got some
we've been
great
getting
citizen
good citizen input from folks, and I just really want to thank the community for paying attention and caring.
Great point, Chris. Thank you. The next one is not really a discussion. What I wanted to make you aware of is that we are issuing an RFP for a fee study to understand whether or not we are inadvertently subsidizing the cost of operating and maintaining our water, sewer, storm drain, roads, etc. And I honestly, based on the work we've done with the water team in the last few months and working with JSSD and understanding more and more about the details of the contract and the arrangements and how things work and various legal interpretations, etc. I am not convinced that we are covering the cost through our current utility fees. And so I think it is that we should be understanding the real cost of doing the work we do to make sure that we are not utilizing funds that could be used for other needs in the town because we're not realizing that we're absorbing some costs because of what we're charging. So there's no action here. I just want to make you aware of it. And the reason I want to make you aware of it is because I anticipate that the studies will come in at more than the allowable limit for me to approve without council. So they'll be shared with you and so forth. But I just want to give you a heads up that we're going to go do that and come back to you with we'll put RFP out. We'll have at least 2, hopefully 3 responses that we can then look at together and decide we're going to use X, Y, or Z, and here's why. So no action there, just be aware. Right? I mean, we're getting into budget season, and we're getting into the process. If we were to have to raise taxes, for example, the truth in taxation requires this kind of data. So I want to get that going. So if we have to make a change, we can take that on. I am so impressed with us tonight. With an agenda like this, I was convinced I'd be here to midnight. Here it is, only 9:30. Where's my clock broken? 9:40, and we're on the last item. So this is we've been doing this by ordinance, so we're going to continue to do this by ordinance. Which is to agree on the meeting schedule for for 2022. Because we have to do that once a year, and that's coming up, as it turns out, just 22 days or so from now. So this is the schedule. We were planning to keep it on Thursdays at 6. Anyone on the council want to make a change on the day of the week, then this is your chance to suggest it. Otherwise, I think we're all kind of used to it. It's on the second Thursday of each month at 6 p.m.
Yeah, I see no reason to change the second Thursday and the time. I think it's been working well for us, but I'd like to know what the rest of the council thinks.
Do we need to include the fact that we've been using the fourth Thursday of the month as a backup if we needed, or just leave that out? What do you think, Mayor?
We can always do it a second meeting with appropriate notice at any time. So we just, the only reason we've been using that is, I guess Sherry should be aware of that because she's probably not, is so we kind of pencil in the fourth Thursday, just in case we have so much business that we can't manage it in one meeting.
I thought that would be today.
So so far we've really done a pretty good job this year of not using it. But I guess since, well, at least the second half of this year. First half of this year, we had like 27 meetings, but yeah. So if we're all okay with this, then again, a motion to adopt an ordinance establishing the regular meeting schedule for 2022 meetings of the Town Council of Hideout, Utah.
I so move.
I'll second.
Who was the second? Sherry?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Chris,
Yes.
Ralph,
Yes.
Sherry,
Yes.
Carol.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. I have spoken with Polly prior to the meeting. There is really, while there is pending or reasonably imminent litigation, personal matters, or sale acquisition of real property, there is nothing that has come up since the last time we had an exec that would cause us to go into exec tonight. So we are recommending that we don't have an exec session. That's okay with the council.
Yep.
So with that, I'd like to take, although it's not on the agenda, I do want to take a moment and thank the council once again for all that you do for the town and how much help and support you provide us, and as well as the staff, and wish everyone a happy and healthy holiday and a wonder-filled new year, and not virus-filled. And again, thanks, guys. You make my job a lot easier. And I just need a motion for us to go home and call it a night.
Mayor, before we do that, and this is probably a question for Alicia, do the newly elected council members and mayor get sworn in, or do the council
We
members
will get sworn in. We will. Alicia, have we figured out if we have to do it on the 3rd, or can we do it at the meeting?
You can do it at the meeting. Cameron and I have looked into this, and you're officially the new council as of the 3rd. Like the transfer of power happens kind of automatically, but you don't need to be sworn in until it's practicable. So, as soon as possible, and the meeting is absolutely fine. Time to do it.
Okay, so we'll do it on January. We'll get sworn in. You'll be officially reelected on the 3rd, but on the 13th, you'll be sworn in.
All right, thank you.
As long as we don't make any decisions between those two times that are not for the protection of health and safety, we'll be fine. Good question, Chris. Okay. Meeting adjournment. I need a motion to adjourn and close the meeting.
So moved.
Second, and happy holidays to everybody.
All right. Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Who did the motion? I'm sorry.
Chris.
Chris. Okay, thanks, Chris. Sorry, I'm just making notes. All right. All in favor?
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, happy holidays, everyone, and thanks to Polly and Cameron and all the other support folks that were here tonight. Really appreciate it. Have a great next month, because there's lots of stuff going on. Stay safe, take care of your families, and we'll see you on the 13th.
Thank you.
Same to you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Right. Good